25106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. We are streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every single day. And we're broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Happy Monday. Might not be the happiest of Mondays for Willy Donick.
No.
A difficult baseball weekend for you, Willy.
Yes, it was.
All the way around. Yikes. I'm sorry.
Well, the Commodores, that was tough. They had everything that could go wrong went wrong. Mm-hmm. I mean, from the first at bat of the first game, where their shortstop and leadoff hitter couldn't come out. He was so sick. They had to delay the game for 5 minutes before he could come up, and he couldn't finish the game. Oof. Then they lost their catcher in the first inning of the second game and cleanup hitter. They also had their third baseman foul 2 consecutive balls off of his knee, and was down for the count. I mean, it was an unbelievable set of one adverse situation after another, and on top of that, they didn't play very well. Yeah, they just didn't play very well, and so that's over. And meanwhile, the Mets, in just spectacular fashion, I had to almost smile. Yesterday, I'm watching, just relaxing Sunday afternoon. Like, they're winning. But I know not to count my chickens. And sure enough, they lead 4-3 in the ninth. They give up a 2-run homer, lose the game. That is the 6th game in a month that they have led after 8 innings and lost. That's impressive.
It's very impressive.
Nobody else has more than 2 in that span. But it's not like they've won like 6 or 7 other games where they've won easily. Like, these are like the only games they have a chance to win, and they're not winning those. It's just been a total meltdown. Ugh. And I just feel for those fans, because you were there. Like, they love the team.
They love the team, and
they embrace pain to some degree. But even this, it almost made you numb. It almost made you laugh. Like, of course the guy hit a home run. Of course they blew another one. God.
I have to say, anyone out there that is in a relationship with a Mets fan, marry that person, because that is loyalty that I have never seen.
And I haven't done any studies on the Mets-Vanderbilt combination that is unique to me.
Yeah.
Somewhat unique. I know a few others, but man, you got to be tough.
You got to be something, I tell you that.
After all these years,
you got to be something, Willie. Mets and Vandy, the last couple of seasons, whew. Feel for you, buddy.
But it makes you enjoy the good times even more. I'm just waiting for the next.
Yeah, he's just waiting for the next good time.
Well, 2015 World Series, 2019 College World Series. That wasn't that long ago.
I had just retired, Willie. That was so long ago.
I graduated from high school in 2015.
Exactly, Willie. That was a lifetime ago, man.
Okay, 2021 College World Series. I mean,
that's a little bit better.
The baseball.
We'll
talk about the baseball.
We had just come out of COVID, so
couple of rough baseball seasons by their standard. Obviously, the bell cow where they have enjoyed a ton of success, which has been great for anybody associated with Vanderbilt. Yeah, it's weird when you don't have, when it's been a couple years since you've had that kind of success. So this is on top of all the other challenges with NIL and. Oh, by the way, Oklahoma and Texas are coming into the league.
Yeah, things aren't getting any easier.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough nut to crack for sure. And then I don't know when the Mets are going to be good again. But a couple of years ago, they won 100 games, and like 2 years ago, they lost the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah. 2 years ago.
That's looking pretty good.
2 years ago, Willie, I was 48. So, I mean.
What have you done for me lately?
Exactly. So, what are you saying, Willie, with the Mets?
What goes around comes around. It's coming back around at some point. I just don't know when.
Last year was last year. That doesn't count.
Yeah, that don't count.
Last year was last year. But we'll continue to get into the college baseball discussion. Of course, Vanderbilt's season cut short with a loss over High Point, got walked off over the weekend. So Vanderbilt is headed back home. It is Cancun on 3 for the Vandy boys. While on the other hand, Tennessee has rolled throughout regionals, and I'm going to venture to guess they will continue to roll. But we'll continue to get into that, into Willy's thoughts as a Vandy boys fan, and kind of just the temperature on the fan base, where they are right now. So we will get into the college baseball discussion. We will get into some hockey conversation as well. The Stanley Cup Finals are set. Edmonton and the Florida Panthers. What are some pages that Barry Trotz could potentially take out of those playbooks? The construction of a Stanley Cup contending team. We'll get into all of that, but I do want to start here. Seth Walder of ESPN Analytics put out the NFL Football Power Index. So the FPI is another one of those numbers-based analytics, kind of crunching up all the numbers of, quarterbacks and record last year and acquisitions in the offseason, losses in the offseason, coaching. It's all of these things that you kind of just throw in the middle and then they jumble it up and then it spits out a number. And, of course, that changes. It changes with acquisitions. It changes with injury, knock on wood. It changes game by game and week by week. So it's fluid. The FPI changes every single week throughout the season. Just think of it as a fancy power ranking. That's really essentially all that it is. But Seth Walder writes, the Football Power Index is our ratings and projection model for NFL teams. In the preseason, the model's overall predictive ratings are based primarily on win totals from ESPN Bet in conjunction with each team's schedule, along with factors such as the strength difference between a team's starting and backup quarterback, and a revamped special teams rating based primarily on new predictive kicker ratings. Whatever the hell.
Interesting he throws that in there because none of us have a reference point of that. And I don't know how they can. How can they know what that will mean? But that's something to watch for sure.
So before we get into it, because I'll give everyone a little bit of a preview before we deep dive into it. Doesn't look great for the Titans, at least as far as the FPI is concerned. How much do we care about FPI? Because the only thing that gives me a little bit of pause, the thing that I look at this with a massive asterisk, and that has nothing to do with the Titans not being very favorable in this list, I always have to look at any metric that uses Vegas with a little bit of a grain of salt.
But Seth Walder is an analytics guy. That's why I think this is significant. And I think Vegas is not dumb. I think that's what we found out over the years. Every time I look at that city,
there's not mansions in the desert for no reason.
Right. I mean, somebody knows how to make money out there. And so with all the sports books, the odds are there for a reason. So I wouldn't doubt at all that odds makers look heavy at analytics when they set the lines. So I don't know which comes first. I feel like the analytics are there. And Seth Walder is a guy that definitely knows how to read, how to speak the language, how to decipher all these numbers that are out there and give them to us, the laymen's that are not math whizzes. I took exactly 2 classes at Vanderbilt that had to do with math. They told me that was it. That's all I did. I was like, all right, I'm done with math. Done with math. Check it off.
Checked off my requirements. Move on.
Moving on. But so I understand, like I always say, about 30 to 40% of what goes on here. But I think it's valuable information. So I would put this on there as I've been telling you that don't be surprised when this is out there. And this is not some guy putting out these power rankings with just, this is what I think. I'm shooting from the hip. I'm looking at the rosters, and I know what's going on. This is mathematically based. This is looking at very deep stuff. So I take note of this, and I'm not surprised, honestly. It doesn't mean they're going to be bad,
no,
right? But it just means that as they look at what they have, they are an underdog. And I've been saying all along, embrace that. If you're the Titans, I wouldn't be trying to tell everybody how good my team's going to be. I would embrace the underdog a little bit more than they're doing publicly.
I mean, yeah, they can embrace it all they want to, but, the fact remains this is a season where, because of the unknown with the quarterback, this is what you're going to continue to get. I mean, regardless of what they have done in the offseason thus far. And they have made some good moves in the offseason thus far. They have filled some holes with some players that have been really good in this league. They've drafted, it seems like, hopefully, they've drafted good this draft. So if you look at all that, what is the sort of common denominator across the board with every sort of indicator with the Nashville Titans, with the Tennessee Titans?
Some people still think it should be called the Nashville
Titans. Yeah, I get it.
That was a big thing when they first announce that.
Should be
Tennessee,
the Nashville
what?
Titans.
You know.
But, I mean, Tennessee sounds better. But the common denominator is, I think, the quarterback. And everything, regardless of what they've done this season, thus far as acquisitions, there's still an unknown and a question mark with the quarterback. So in these projections, they are looking at it based solely on the quarterback. Because I guarantee you, the teams that are below them, the 4 teams that are below them, I believe, all have young quarterbacks possibly, or they're still trying to figure out their quarterback situation. And the Titans are no different. So they can come out with another ranking and do it based upon these metrics, and the Titans will still fall below what I even expect because of the quarterback position. And
you're right. Looking at the FPI, the Titans come in at 27th at minus 2.9. So whatever that means. The 49ers are at the top of the list at plus 5.1. The Chiefs at 2 at plus 5. So just to kind of give you a jumping off point from there, something to compare it to, the Titans at minus 2.9, the best in the league, the 49ers at plus 5.1. The teams behind them have young quarterbacks. Commanders, Jaden Daniels is a rookie quarterback with the Giants. I don't think anyone thinks Daniel Jones is going to be all that great. The Broncos with Bo Nix and the Patriots with Drake May, all teams with question marks at the quarterback, or at least a lot of newness at the quarterback position. And I think we would be lying to ourselves if we said that the Titans weren't in that same boat with a little bit of a question mark at the quarterback position. I'm encouraged about Will Levis, but what is he? We don't know. And anybody that says that they think they know, I don't think is telling the total and complete truth. So in terms of the FPI, that's one thing. But I think one thing that's incredibly interesting here is the Super Bowl projections. Now, nobody's talking about the Titans in the Super Bowl. That would be silly to talk about the Titans even being a Super Bowl contender, much less winning the Super Bowl. That's outrageous. The Titans have the 3rd worst odds to win the Super Bowl, but they're behind Minnesota with J.J. McCarthy at the quarterback position.
I think that probably
in Denver.
My first thought on that would be that the AFC is so deep.
Yeah.
That it's just generally harder to win it in the AFC than it is the NFC. That's what I would interpret from that number, me not being a math major. But look, all of this to say, I don't think we should be surprised, and I think there will be more of these throughout the summer, all the way through training camp. And I think regardless if it's somebody in his grandmother's basement that is doing a blog, or somebody pretty high-tech like this one, you're not going to see the Titans much higher than about 25th, I think, in anything. I just don't think that is what it's going to look like.
And it's about the quarterback.
Yeah.
But
I think it's about the whole roster. It's not just about the quarterback.
No, I mean,
even if we think we're optimistic here and we think they've made improvements, and I think that they probably have in a lot of areas, I still think the reality is there's a ton of question marks. And the quarterback it always starts with the quarterback. But I think there's a number of them after that. Right? Offensive line, defense,
I think,
all of that stuff.
I think the offensive line is going to be a question until we actually see them play. But I think a lot of this does sort of fall in line with how your quarterback – show me your quarterback and I'll show you your team. Isn't that how it is? Show me your friend. You show me who your friends are, and I can show you who you're going to be or who you are as well. That's the same thing. Show me who the Titans quarterback is, and I will tell you what their record is going to be. That's basically what it's saying, because the teams that are ahead of them, especially when you're talking the Super Bowl, the teams that are ahead of them, with the exception of Denver, Washington, and Giants, you got 5 teams ahead of them that still has questions at their quarterback. Then you look at Arizona. I don't know if they got a question at their quarterback. I think they would just want their quarterback to mature more than what he is, because I think he's a damn good player. But I think they need him to mature as a leader or supposed leader of this team. But beside that, these other teams more than likely have their quarterback, and the teams that are 27, 28, 29, that falls below that, those are teams that still have this question mark with their quarterback. If Will Levis had played the whole season last year and he had a good rookie year, Didn't have to be great. Didn't have to be bad. But a good rookie year. They will be much higher on the list considering the acquisitions they made over the offseason. They got two of the best corners in the National Football League. I'm not saying they're top 5 corners, but they're damn sure like top 10, top 12 corners, both of them. You went and got you a center that's one of the best centers in the National Football League. So you went and did some things to sort of address areas of your team. And then you went in the draft and you addressed it. You addressed the left tackle position. I know that he played right tackle in college. I get that. But you drafted him to be your left tackle. So you've addressed some of these areas of concern. But the one area that we don't know about is the quarterback yet. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows truly what this quarterback is. So they could have went out and got, Calvin Ridley and Higgins. And it still would have been a question mark for this team because of the quarterback.
We know the beauty of the NFL is that every year there's 2 or 3 teams that are in this group of teams that we're talking about that end up having it all come together and having a really good season.
The Texans.
Mm-hmm.
No question. You would have seen the Texans way on the bottom of these lists. Mm-hmm. So you can't panic. I just think it is a reality check for those that say, well, they spent all this money. They're going to be good. I think there's still a lot of things that need to be answered, and it stems to me not just from a new quarterback, but those 3 empty drafts that we keep coming back to. They don't have a foundational group of young players that they are leaning on. It's a thin list. When you list, give me the top players, established players they have coming back from last year. It's almost like the old school Street and Smith, returning starters. Remember that we used to really get into returning starters. Now with NIL, like who knows who the returning starters are. Returning starters from your team or returning starters from other teams that you got transfers from, right? But now I do think returning starters, it's Jeffrey Simmons, it's DeAndre Hopkins. The list is kind of like, that's after you get about 4 or 5 down, it's like, okay. It's not like a lot of other teams. I bet you if you did it for the Ravens or if you did it for the 49ers, you'd have a much deeper group of a foundational group that is established. You know what they're going to be. The Titans do not have that. So a lot has to come together. It might, but I think, once again, it's an exploratory season. It's a transitional season. It's a new era. So I'm not surprised at all that they're going to be in the bottom 5 to 10 teams. And they have the 5th. They have a 37% chance, according to Seth Walder, of having a top 5 draft pick.
That's
so
high.
If you think, well, they're not going to pick 7th again next year, well, they might. I mean, it's possible.
And then the pick, I'm trying to find it here in the article, 7% chance of a number 1 overall pick.
At the number 1 overall pick.
The Patriots have the best odds, or I guess maybe worst odds, however you want to look at it there.
Worst best, yeah.
22% chance of the Patriots getting the number 1 overall pick, and Panthers 21%. So the Titans 7%. That's still pretty substantial. That's 4th on this list.
What I would like to see, and maybe we need to try to get Seth on because we've had him on before, is let's delve into what he's looking at statistically as to why they're this low. Because not only are they low, just looking at a roster, because they found a way to be pretty competitive, and so I can't tell you everything about the roster coming back for the Colts, but I would venture to say they probably have a little deeper group of players that they can count on.
No, I just think it's the perception of the Colts, man. Because
it's not on perception. It's on the numbers. That's the thing about this. It's not a perception. It's not, hey, they're biased against Nashville or it's a small market. These are that's the one thing about analytics is they are unbiased. It is the math.
That's the thing that I know that very smart people that have a lot of information that crunch all the numbers in Vegas comes up with these win totals or odds or whatever it might be. But there is some human influence in Vegas odds. Like I look at Chicago at 19th in the FPI at minus 0.3. Again, the Titans are at 27 at minus 2.9. Is Chicago that much better from last year to this year? I think Caleb Williams is going to be fantastic, but I don't know that. We've seen a lot of number 1 overall picks, probably more number 1 overall picks than not. not do very well in their rookie season. We saw it with Joe Burrow, and we saw it with Trevor Lawrence, and obviously there was an Urban Meyer situation happening in Jacksonville, so maybe ESPN bet numbers that are kind of swaying FPI one way or another. And I know it's one small part, or one portion at least, of several different factors that go into FPI, total and complete homer, but when I look at the rosters on paper, when I look at the questions that we don't have answered about both of those quarterbacks, I don't think that the Colts should be viewed as a way better team than the Titans are at this point.
We know, who was another one last year. I feel like wasn't Atlanta down there? Maybe it was 2 years ago that Atlanta was way, way down at the bottom, consensus worst team, and they were competitive. There's also a long way for, because some would say, what difference does it make whether you're 27 or 17 if it's only the difference between, say, 5 and 12 and 7 and 10, right? That's probably what we're talking about. The range from 17 to 27 is maybe in that range. The question is, can you make a big jump? Can you be way better than these rankings and maybe sneak into the playoffs, which is sort of a best case scenario for this group, and hopefully with the idea that you're building towards something. Because what I would say about the Bears have been bad for a while, but they've been picking high. So at some point, you either, unless you're just drafting terribly bad, which can be the case sometimes, you would hope that you're going to start seeing the fruits of picking that high and getting that many picks. Because it's not just picking high. They've wheeled it into other picks, multiple picks in the first 2 or 3 rounds. If they've done anything, they should have some good players out of that. I would hope.
The
from
Bears,
a Bears fan.
They've made trades mid-season last year. To get DJ Moore, to get the rush in Chase from was it Chase or the other cat from Washington? They got them a defense.
Sweat?
Yeah, Sweat. They ended up getting DeAndre Sweat. They ended up getting DeAndre Sweat. So they were trying to put this roster together even last year, and then obviously they got their 2 first-round picks. So it's going to be a little bit different. What I'm looking at this, and I need to understand this more, because a lot of this is based on quarterbacks. But if I'm reading this right, it is based on parts of it, the quarterback play and the difference between the team starting and backup quarterbacks.
And it should.
Yeah, and it should. Yeah. So they're looking at the Titans quarterback. They're looking at the backup quarterback, and they're saying, because they don't have enough information on Will Levis, they're saying, well, this is where this team's going to end up based upon these metrics. The starting quarterback, the backup quarterback. Then there are other things in there as well. But I think a lot of this is based on who your quarterback is. It has to.
Sure.
So again.
And it's a fairly small sample size.
Exactly. So it's a small sample size.
And a lot of things have changed from last year to this year. The coach, the coordinator, there's all
So I want to know why, if that is indeed the case, why are some of these other teams with young quarterbacks or quarterbacks that hadn't played a down in the NFL yet?
J.J. McCarthy.
Are ranked higher.
Caleb Williams.
Yeah, are ranked higher than the Titans. So if it's based on your quarterback in some of these other situations, then beside that, what else are you basing it on? Strength of schedule? Because I think in the strength of schedule, the Titans have one of the easier schedules in the National Football League based upon their strength.
It is interesting, the response that I've heard a lot of people, media members in this market, talking about the Titans schedule. Because I was listening to Corey Curtis on with Robbie and Rexford this morning, and he said, that's not a last place schedule. That's a tough schedule. And I kind of looked at it and I thought, well, this isn't the worst draw out there. But it's not a cupcake. No. It's not just the easiest schedule out there.
It didn't jump out at me as like, oh, wow, they really are benefiting because they get to play X and Y. I don't think the last place teams they got, it only makes a difference in a couple of the games, right? But those two, we went and looked at it after the, I was like, ooh, that's not like the doormat. You're not playing Carolina. You're.
That would be nice.
But as I've said before, there are no easy games in this league. So if I think you should take out the strength of schedule. All that when you're adding up all these numbers, take out the strength of schedule, because every game in the National Football League is a hard-fought game. You can be playing the Carolina Panthers last year, and it will come down to the last couple of series of the game, for whether you're going to win or lose. So to me, there's no cakewalks in this league. For those that say, to me, they hadn't played the game at all, when you go in there between those lines, there's no cupcakes. So some years it's like, okay, the strength of schedule, this team should do better. Well, this year, why not use that same logic with the Titans? But I guess they're not. Mm-hmm. You know, they're not looking at their schedule and saying, "Oh, this is a cake. This is an easier schedule. It should be, it should afford them 7, 8, 9, 10 wins with the schedule." When in actuality, no, it doesn't.
I do want to continue this conversation. Again, we're reacting to Seth Walder's Football Power Index published over the weekend. FPI uses several different factors: quarterback play, backup quarterback play, special teams defense, win totals from Vegas, to all spit out this number of how good teams are going to be, a projection of how good a team can be in the rankings in the NFL. The Titans at the bottom of the list. The Titans at the top of the list of teams in contention for the first overall pick, for a top 5 pick. So overall, FBI doesn't think you're going to be very good this upcoming season. But what I want to get into coming up next is, what if they are that bad? What if the Titans do have a top 5 pick? Hell, what if the Titans even have the top pick? We'll get into that coming up next. I also want to get into your thoughts into this as well. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. We're brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee to bet. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5-1063, The Game, and the Game Nashville app. We're talking about Seth Walder's Football Power Index published over the weekend, and FPI is another analytic to add some basis to a power ranking. So it's not just somebody's opinion that they get up there and say, I think that so-and-so team is the best team in the NFL. No, it's number crunching, it's analytics, and it doesn't like the Titans very much. Titans at 27th in the FPI. But I think the more telling thing, because 26, 27, whatever it might be, I don't think any of us expected the Titans to be very high on any sort of power ranking. But I think the most telling thing to me was that the Titans had worst odds to even make the Super Bowl, much less win the Super Bowl, which, again, I'm not saying I predict the Titans to win the Super Bowl, but they predict teams 1 through 32, and the Titans were third worst behind most teams with a rookie quarterback. The Titans have a 37% chance at a top 5 pick, which compared to the rest of the list, it's high. It's 4th highest in the National Football League. So my question for you guys, what if the Titans are that bad? I don't think that they're going to be third worst team in the league. I don't think so. I think that they've added too much talent in the offseason to be that bad. But I'm not counting out the possibility that the Titans could be atrocious this year, that things don't click. There's a lot of newness, new coordinators, new head coach that's never called plays before that will be calling plays. It's a new offense that Will Levis has to learn. He's learned a lot of different offenses over the last 4 years, even going back to his time at Kentucky. A lot of newness on the offensive line. Like, things might just not gel. They might not be very good. So what happens if they are that bad?
This is what I've been trying to say from the start. They're not going to be picked very high. In fact, they're probably going to be picked 4th in the division by just about everybody, other than the rare person that is going to go the other way. It's not going to be everybody, but their consensus is going to be picked 4th. They're going to be in these power rankings. So we shouldn't be surprised if it goes wrong. So that would be the answer. But this is why I would be tempering expectations if I'm the team, because there's nothing wrong with using this to your advantage privately and saying, hey, nobody thinks we're going to be any good. We're going to try to prove them wrong. But you work that. You use that chip on your shoulder. You don't go trying to convince everybody that you're going to be better. But I think this is the reality check for everybody that's saying, they spent the most money in free agency, they should be good. That's not how you build a winning team, at least for now. It could work, but my answer is you shouldn't be surprised if they aren't that good this year. I hope they're better. I think they have ways of being better, but it's a long shot, and that's fine. If they are the underdog, embrace the underdog.
Do you think it's a long shot to be better?
Better than last year?
Yeah.
No, not to be a little bit better than last year, but they were not good last year.
No, they were not.
And, in fact, they were predicted in this last year. They were in the 20s last year. Mm-hmm. Nobody was predicting them really to win the division last year.
No.
And that was more disappointing because they were trying to win last year. This year, even though they really haven't said it, this is a rebuild. This is a new era. They have an opportunity to say, hey, yeah, we're the underdogs. That's what I would be going with. I would be selling that. We're the underdogs. This is a new era. Let's see where it goes. It's wide open.
That's a dangerous game.
Listen,
when you're trying to sell
not
tickets.
For 1 year.
Exactly.
Not for 1 year. Now, if you're still telling me 2 or 3 years down the road, yeah, we're the underdogs. We love it. That doesn't fly.
I think
but this year it can fly. Why?
It's a tough message to sell because they have spent so much money in free agency.
That's what I'm saying. See what that got them? 27. That doesn't mean anything.
Spending money in free agency doesn't mean anything?
They had to. They didn't have any other players. They haven't drafted any players that are any good.
They didn't have to sign Calvin Ridley. They didn't have to trade for L'Jarius
You have to spend a certain amount of money to get to the salary cap floor.
They didn't have to spend money on Lloyd Cushenberry. They could have gone on the cheap if they didn't want to spend money.
Yes, they're trying to rebuild. They had to. It was desperate. You know why? Because they didn't draft anybody that was worth re-signing to another contract.
Over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Tell me the players that they've reinvested in for second contracts over the last couple of years. They haven't.
Of, Jeffrey
this is why. So they have a lot of money.
Harold Landry.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay.
That's two.
No,
I'm
really.
just
you're right.
giving you the name.
It's a short list.
It's a short list. That's the reason why the Titans are in this position roster-wise where...
It's the mark of a bad team is when you have to spend that much money on free agency because it is fraught with pitfalls historically. There's not many teams that have said, let's go out and spend the most money in free agency and we're going to build a great team. It doesn't happen very often.
The way I see it is this. If this team if this team is winning, if they win less than 7 games, then we have a problem because we have a quarterback problem. Point blank. If this team doesn't win more than 7 games, we got a quarterback problem. That's what we have because, and I think Will's going to be really good this year. I do believe that because what they've done, they just didn't go out and just say, okay, let's spend to be spending. Let's just, because we got to get to this number. It's mandatory by the league, so we got to spend X amount of dollars. They just didn't do that. I think they were strategic in what they did in trying to build this team to win now and to, as they continue to win, to build this roster through the draft, more than likely. That's what they want to do. And then supplement it through free agency again next year. When you go out and get 2 of the top corners in the National Football League, when you go out and get one of the top centers in the National Football League, when you go out and get 2 of the, I consider the top 35 receivers in this league, you are trying to win now. You don't win now, we're going to be turning around. We're going to be looking at 2 things. We're going to be looking at the quarterback and we're going to be looking at the GM. I'm just being honest here. And I will give Rand Carthon the slack that he needs. But if they're not winning, we're going to point and look at those 2 situations. Because more than likely, if they don't win more than 6 games, it's because of the quarterback. That's what it's because of. Either he gets hurt or you just don't play well. They've set up this young quarterback to have success. When you go out and get Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, and you have D-Hop, you are asking this guy to go out there and lead this team to victory. When you go get a running back in Pollard, you're saying, we are expecting to win now. We want to win the division now. Our division is not that far. We're not that far removed from winning the AFC South.
And the
Let's
Texans
get back
are on a
there.
different level.
The Texans are.
But the Jags and the Colts, I don't view them as any sort of world beaters.
The Texans. We look at the Texans, and the Texans are a good team.
I
would say that
got better in the offseason, I think.
They are a good team. You know the hardest thing in the NFL to do is repeat it the next season because now everybody has tape on what you've been trying to do. So this division is not the Texans and everybody else. This division is still going to be a scrappy division, and the Titans are going to be right in the middle of it. How long? I don't know, but they're going to be right in the middle of it this year. They don't win this year, I'm looking at Rand Carthon and I'm looking at the quarterback. If they don't win more than 8 games, that's who I'm looking at. Because this is a team with a roster at the top end. I'm not talking about underneath because they still got it underneath.
Is huge.
I know
huge.
That's why this team, they can't afford injuries. They cannot afford not one injury at this point in time.
And how realistic is that?
I get that.
How many teams in the National Football League are stacked top to bottom
not
and have
many.
A ton of great depth?
Kansas City's not even stacked top to bottom.
That's why they do these
it's just
rankings.
the core, exactly.
I would say the 49ers maybe would be the team that you're like, oh my gosh,
but
they're
this
good
is,
all the way
this
around
is
the
where I'm
roster.
going to give
but
Rand Carthon time, is that he inherited a team
You don't
that
get
had
time
been
no more
winning.
in the NFL.
Well, that's
You
not
don't.
fair. I'm just pointing out that it's not fair. Like, he had 2 choices. He could have just really, worked it down to nothing, right, and gone really cheap with young players and say, we're going to see what we can find. We're going full rebuild. And then you have what Carolina had last year, which is nothing. Like, they got their guy killed, and they're really starting over. They went backwards last year. They're not going, and they traded the first pick away. They didn't even get to have the first pick.
yeah, Chicago is just going to be reeling in the riches.
Exactly.
Of that
So Carolina is in a terrible spot.
trade. They're in a rough spot.
Yeah.
Just papering over with these free agency moves is a good thing to remain competitive and give your quarterback a chance to succeed. But winning the division, that's a different story. A lot has to come together. But they need a couple more drafts. When you're moving on from Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, Kevin Byard, Danico Autry, veteran guys that were part of a winning team for a long time. It's a new era. You're building something different right now.
They need to draft.
It's tough to transition out of that. You have tough choices
And
there.
that's what free agency is there for, is supplementing what you lost, supplementing what you didn't re-sign to a second contract. And I would agree that to be
But they're coming off of
consistently
2
good, you
straight
have to
bad
draft
years.
well.
You're coming off. They weren't great the last 2 years with those guys. Now you don't even have those guys. Derrick Henry being the number one guy.
Of course, and then you added more in this offseason. I'm not saying that
They
this
don't have
makes
Derrick
them
Henry,
Super
though.
Bowl contenders. No, that
They don't have a caliber. They don't have these great players. As good as Ridley might be, he's not anything close to a Derrick Henry kind of game changer.
I'll ask you this. At this point this year, who is more of an impactful game changer? Would it be Calvin Ridley or Derrick Henry?
I'm not talking about this year. I'm talking about Derrick Henry that made them a winning team when he was one of the bigger needle movers in the
and
game.
you don't lose Derrick Henry and get better.
Calvin Ridley will never be that kind of guy. He might be better than Derrick Henry is this year. That's not saying much. Derrick Henry's past his prime. He's going to be a winning player, hopefully, on a team that's already in a position to win.
When it comes to
That's
this
why it's
team.
but it's a new era. It's a rebuild. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, it's a new team. It's a new coach. It's a new philosophy. It's a new offense. It's a new quarterback. It's a new running philosophy. Absolutely, things are different. Things are changing.
But he's not a star player, even though they're paying him a lot of money. Calvin Ridley has never been a consistent star in the league. He's had a couple of good years, right?
And he hasn't been available largely, and that is absolutely a concern.
So there's major question marks.
And that also-
DeAndre Hopkins was a star in the league that's no longer a star. You're hoping he's still good. These are the guys that are ranking at the top of your roster. These are the questions I'm asking as to why they're 27th.
And that's why I go back to the quarterback play. If the quarterback play is if Will Levis can come out and just play good football, then this team, what they've done, they should be in the running for a playoff spot. Do I believe like, okay, they're going to win the division? More probably not. But if Will Levis plays good, he gives them an opportunity. Not
hope he
just
plays well.
Not just to win AFC South, but put themselves in a position to make a playoff run or to get in the playoffs. So
I think getting in the playoffs would be a massive success.
I think, yeah, it would be a massive success considering the last two seasons that they want to win now. They're not. Listen, they are going to use the draft to sustain the winning. They're using free agency to win now. The draft is going to sustain the winning.
Yeah.
Because they can't draft 30 people in 1 year.
Right.
So the draft is going to sustain the winning. That's why I said they better win this year. I'm not saying they got to go to the Super Bowl. I'm not saying that they need to be 12 and whatever. They need to win. They need to have a better record than what they had last year. This is a team that is capable of winning 9 games. But a lot of it predicates on whether the quarterback is the quarterback they believe he is.
Right.
100%.
That's 100%. So to me,
that's realistic to me.
yeah,
8
but
or
the way
9
they've
wins, but
constructed
that's-
the way
Yeah.
they constructed this roster in the offseason, they want to win now. They didn't go out and say, "Oh, we're gonna get this guy because we hope to win in 3 years."
But
They got these
winning
guys
8 or
because they want
9
to win
now is different than contending.
Oh, well, I don't think anybody
We're talking
thinks
about
that they're gonna be
the best
contending.
case. The best case of winning 8 or 9. That
best case
says a
scenario.
lot.
No,
Best
best
case
case
is not
scenario
8 or
for this
9.
team is 10 wins. This
Okay,
can be a 10-win
that's
team.
Still 10-7 isn't.
10-7 may get you in the playoffs. It may get you in the playoffs.
If that is best case scenario, then we have to look at the worst case scenario, and that's where you get into these probabilities, right? That's what the analytics are all based on. And there's a great story or two every year.
Mm-hmm.
So cling to hope. That's fine, but just don't be surprised if it doesn't go well. Like if they have a bunch of injuries, like they've had the last 3 seasons. And the quarterback isn't that great. There's just a lot of possibilities that they fall way short of what you're hoping the best case scenario is.
If the
That's where I am
Titans
on it.
have as many
That's
injuries
where
as
I
they've
look
had
at
the last 3
probabilities,
years.
analytics. That's what that's all about. It's to sort of set those expectations. So if you're expecting them to win now because they spent a lot of money, you're raising the bar. That's a dangerous thing to do. You're going to be disappointed.
To me, it's not about the money. It's just about the guys.
It's about the talent.
Yeah, you could have paid them, less than what you paid them. It's the talent that you're bringing in. Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd,
Right, but
Berry.
we just went through that whole exercise last week about
Snead,
the numbers of those 3 wide receivers. They weren't great last year.
Though individually they wasn't, but together, collectively in this
I
offense,
hope
what you
you're
hope
right.
to be,
I hope.
and whether the quarterback plays
We're
well or
hoping.
not, this team, I'm not looking for all these guys to be 1,000-yard receivers. That's not what I'm looking for. But you don't need to have 3,000-yard receivers to have a productive offense or a winning offense. My last year in Baltimore, we had 3 or two 800-900-yard receivers, and we still were one of the better teams in the National Football League. We lost to Pittsburgh, I think, in the second round of the playoffs. So you don't need to have these guys that are 1,000-yard receivers. It's how do we all play together? Let's figure out how we're going to play together, and that's the Titans. Let's figure out how we're going to play. If we got 3,000-yard receivers, that's great. But if we don't, we still are able to win. That's what they got to figure out and understand.
We have to take a break, but we'll get in some of your phones on this coming up next. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5-106.3 The Game.
All right, let's tell you about Loan Pronto. Imagine waking up this time next week being 100% debt-free from credit cards, car loans, personal loans. The way to do it is through Loan Pronto's Equity Express line of credit. They can make it happen, and they can make it happen quick. Through your home's equity, they can turn that equity into cash, and they can do it quick. With the AI-based system, you can get approval in about 10 minutes with almost no documentation, no appraisal, no hassle. You can get hundreds of thousands of dollars out of your home, and then you take that cash, you knock out the credit card bill that's got that high interest rate that's eating into your monthly budget. You can pay off that car, no car payment month after month, no personal loans. Get that down to zero and stop those high interest rates from eating you up. Use that money. The average homeowner, they've done the study at Loan Pronto, it could save over $850 a month doing it. So find out more by calling now, 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval, equal housing lender.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. We do have some Music City Grand Prix tickets to give away, so stick around. We will do that next hour. But first, want to get into your thoughts. We're reacting to Seth Walder's FPI, the Football Power Index, at least in the preseason. Titans in at 27th. The Titans with a top five odds to get a number 1 overall pick. Not very favorable for the Titans, but want to get into your reaction on that. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Kyle is on the line with a thought on the salary cap. What's up, Kyle?
Hey, guys. I was looking up, and it shows the Titans have about $20 million left in salary cap space. I was just wondering, Willie, D-Mase, and you, what would y'all buy if you had to buy one position? What player? And, I'm just having some fun.
Who's at the store? That's the question. I mean, I have money, but what store am I going to? Where are the players that are sitting out there right now that can help the team?
Justin Simmons. Because next year Hooker's gone, Molden, his contract expired. We got to get some more safeties, and Justin Simmons, that's who I'd go for.
Yeah, see, Justin Simmons, it's not going to solve your safety problem next year and thank you for your call, Kyle. Because Justin, how old is he? He's like 31.
31, I believe.
31.
Yeah.
So he's not going to be, you're not signing him to a 4 or 5 year deal. He's not your long-term solution at the safety position. But I would agree that the Titans probably need to go out and address the safety position at some point.
Yeah, they're going to have to go out and address that position. I think, just getting some more depth at the linebacker position.
Yeah.
They're going to have to do that, I believe.
Inside linebacker.
Yeah, safety. I would say corner too. Tackles, yeah, I would say safety. Corners too. Even though I think your top 3 corners are good. If you can keep those 3 guys healthy, I think you're gonna have one of the better secondaries in the National Football League. But we know that's not the case. So you have to build up the depth behind your 3 starters: McQuarrie, Awuzie, and Snead. So to me, it's that, the inside backer position and the safety position, and then always the offensive line. You can never have enough depth there.
Is there another? I haven't looked closely enough, but you always hear at this time of the year there could be some salary cap
there could
casualties that open up some players.
That's usually
because right now I feel like you go into the store, it's like one of those things after the storm, or you're like, there's nothing on the shelves. They haven't restocked the shelves. There's not a lot of options out there.
There's no bread and no milk.
Right, exactly.
Reason,
I need bread and milk, but there's there's one loaf that looked like it was messed with a little bit. Somebody may have reached in there, took a little piece of bread out. You don't want to buy that. That's the only reason why it's still on the shelf. Everything else is gone.
You know what you do about that, Willie? You cut the end off and you tell the little person up front, hey, just half price. That's all I say. And you get something for a discount.
And you get a deal. Well, looking for deals. Titans are looking for deals. But maybe there's some more stock coming if there's more salary cap.
Usually it's
people.
1st of June where guys start to
I'm looking for those stories. Maybe that will happen.
And it is interesting to see too the safety position. There has not been a run on that position.
No.
There are a lot of solid safeties that are out there. Again, older, maybe injured. So safeties that aren't going to be signed to these massive deals. Yeah, exactly. Kind of a plug and play.
It's like the loaf of bread we just described.
Yeah.
Flawed. You can get a good deal.
But there
still good loaf of bread.
Still a pretty good loaf. You can get some good sandwiches out of it.
Make some meatballs out of it. I'm just saying. Use the bread for the meatballs.
It always comes back with food and dishes for Nick.
Exactly.
Indy Ben Texan, which I swear, anytime any of us even thinks about the city of Indianapolis, it's like the bat signal for Indy Ben.
Yeah.
He's like, somebody say something about the Colts.
His ears peak up like, oh, okay.
My team? He says, Colts also know that they have a good head coach in Steichen. We still don't know about Callahan. We don't know how he will turn out yet. That's true. I don't know what Callahan's going to be like as a head coach. Do we know that Shane Steichen's a good head coach?
We don't. I
don't know that. I think that he's a good coach.
I think that he is. But is he? I don't know. He did okay his first year, I guess.
Yeah.
Considering the injury at the quarterback position. But honestly, I think they may have been a little bit better with Gardner Minshew because they were able to open up the playbook a little bit more.
I think you got to say, though, the coaching staff did a pretty good job.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Staying competitive, pulling some up. I mean, obviously, they pulled off a couple wins against the Titans in games that could have absolutely gone either way. They won at Baltimore with Minshew quarterbacking. They did well. And then, of course, the last play, remember there was the weird play against the Texans where they tried to throw it on 4th and 1, like it was a really weird
It was
play
wonky.
call.
But the fact that they were in that position,
The fact
because
they even
if
got
they
there,
won
I thought
that
it was
game,
a
they would have
miracle.
made the playoffs.
I thought it was a miracle. Nobody, no, they were probably in 25 or lower in all of the power rankings last year, right?
And I'll give Shane
and they
Steichen
overachieved
credit for that. But I'm not going to say that there's like, Shane Steichen is some proven commodity and as opposed to Brian Callahan. I think that Shane Steichen's a good coach, but I don't think there's a massive difference there. Okay, coming up next, the Stanley Cup playoffs are set. Edmonton and Florida will face off for an opportunity to hoist the Stanley Cup. What does that mean for the Predators? What are some lessons, some tidbits, as this is a copycat league, that Barry Trotz can look at and mimic to make the Predators Stanley Cup contenders? We'll get into that coming up next, and of course continue to get into your phones. And we also will have a Music City Grand Prix ticket giveaway, so stick around. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. You can purchase your tickets, speaking of the Music City Grand Prix, you can purchase your tickets right now for the Music City Grand Prix at the Nashville Superspeedway on Friday, September 13th through Sunday, September 15th at musiccitygp.com. As the race in Station 1025 The Game has a special offer that's for a limited time. Use promo code GAME, G-A-M-E, for a 20% discount now through June 16th.
Let's talk about Zen Sports, people, the new sports book in Tennessee that's bringing sports betting to a whole new level, and I mean that literally, people. When you sign up for a Zen Sports account, you will automatically earn up to $1,000. No danger first wager. If your first bet loses, you'll be reimbursed. You'll be reimbursed for the amount of your bet up to $1,000. No danger first wager. Okay? The Zen Sports they also offer a true odds on all parlays and boosted same game parlays for all Tennessee sports. That means boosted up to 20% over other books in Tennessee, people. And there's even more good news. Zen Sports offers a one-of-a-kind VIP reward program. If you qualify, you earn monthly comps at sporting events, concerts, you name it, even sport book bonuses. The VIP program is by invite only. So if you feel that your Zen Sports play qualifies for the VIP consideration, check out the program details and apply at zensports.com/VIP, people. So what are you waiting for? The daily same game parlay boost. Go quickly. So get going and download their app at zensports.com today. That's Zen Sports, where betting just got better. And remember, gambling problems, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 years or older to bet here in Tennessee.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 1025, 1063, The Game, and the Game Nashville app. We are streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every single day. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Stanley Cup playoffs are set. Edmonton Oilers taking on the Florida Panthers. And I'm a little bit upset we didn't get a Game 7. Those were two great series in the conference finals. I also think all Nashville Predators fans are breathing at least a little bit of a sigh of relief.
Because Vancouver.
That Matt Duchene will not be in the Stanley Cup final.
He did not score a point in that series.
Nope. So I think there's a little bit of pettiness going on. And I get it. I get it.
I think the question now, and this will be an interesting one, is how, because I listened to Elliott's podcast this morning. He seemed to think that there is interest on Dallas's part in keeping Duchene, but for what? Like he was a great deal for them at $3 million a year, but he's a free agent. He's still getting paid by the Predators, so whatever team is trying to negotiate say, well, Matt, you're getting a pretty good check from Nashville. Well, how about if you just take $3 million again or something like that? I'm curious what he's worth on the open market and how important he is, because Dallas has a lot of decisions to make, just like every team.
Yeah.
When you have a winning team and you're going for it, you usually have some tough decisions to make after the season's over. But that'll be one to watch. Where does Matt Duchene end up next year, and who's paying him what? Is he getting a multi-year deal? Is it a one-year deal? Yeah.
That's going to be interesting to watch. We've got the Oilers and the Florida Panthers now in the Stanley Cup final. We always talk about this in the NFL. It's a copycat league. Anytime a team wins a Super Bowl, that now becomes the formula. I think we see it a lot with quarterbacks. For the longest time, the model was be really bad, draft a quarterback with the first overall pick or at the top of the draft, and then that's your franchise quarterback, and ideally that quarterback gets you to the promised land. And then I almost said St. Louis. The Los Angeles Rams trade for Matthew Stafford. They pay him a bunch of money. They said F them picks. They invested a ton of money into their roster, and then the Rams won the Super Bowl. So then that became kind of the nouveau riche way to do it. That's exactly why the Denver Broncos gave up what they gave up to get Russell Wilson. Was, okay, this is going to be our Matthew Stafford. This is going to be the LA Rams formula for winning a Super Bowl. Obviously, that did not work out. So then maybe the rest of the Deshaun Watson was kind of the same way of a proven quarterback, a more veteran quarterback. We'll pay him a bunch of money. Obviously, that didn't work out either. So that formula has kind of shifted. The NHL can be very similar. What does this team do? How did this team build their roster? What's the identity of this roster? How can we recreate it? Is it fair to say, Willy, that looking at the Edmonton Oilers formula for getting to the Stanley Cup final, let's throw that out the window because you're not getting a McDavid and a Draisaitl anytime soon?
Yeah, I think, and we've talked a lot about Edmonton and what they've done the last few years. Edmonton was really bad for a long time, and they failed on converting on some high top 5 picks for a while before they actually got it right. And, of course, they couldn't miss with McDavid and Draisaitl pretty much. Draisaitl was not the first overall pick. I think he was third. So it was a smart pick by them to get him there. And it's all been about, since they've gotten those two guys, how do you build the winner around them? And they have mortgaged the future, gone all in the last couple of years, and now they break through. Like I think it's fair to say, without the Matthias Ekholm trade last year, they probably wouldn't have made it this year. He's been a really good return on investment. It'll be worth whatever they gave up to the Predators. And Tanner Molendyk is a good-looking prospect that they got with that first-round pick. We'll see where his career goes, but Edmonton will say, well, have at it. That's what we were willing to do.
We're in it for
to
the
try
now.
to win. And I would say, so that model for the Predators, probably not the way that Barry Trotz is going to go about it. They're not just going to be bad for 5 years. I think we know that.
And he's a special talent. McDavid is a special talent that you're not guaranteed to find a McDavid in 3 to 5 years.
Right. And I think Florida is an example of that. They had several high top 5 picks. Guys like Aaron Ekblad, who's a really good player. He's still on the team, but he's not a household name, right? He's had ups and downs. He's had injuries. He's still very good, but he's not a franchise player. Jonathan Huberdeau was 2nd or 3rd overall. Good player. They used him to get Matthew Tkachuk. I almost said Keith Tkachuk. That's his dad. So they are an interesting mix. Florida figured it out. After years and years of trials and tribulations, bad ownership, not a lot of fans, they finally got, I think, a good ownership group, a smart general manager, and they pieced together a roster that has got a lot of interesting quirks to it that we talk about a lot in terms of the Predators. Number one, they pay the goalie, right? He's Sergei Bobrovsky, $10 million a year. And they have found a way to have, I think, a much deeper team. Why are they winning? They've got more depth than the teams that they have beaten. They've got on paper more depth than the Oilers. I'm thinking,
which is
if
crazy.
you're paying $10 million for your goalie
and 9.5 for Kachuk,
and $10 million for Alexander Barkov, who is a true number one center,
how do you have depth?
That's the interesting part. So they have guys who have probably punched higher than their weight. Sam Bennett, Carter Verhaeghe, Sam Reinhart would be three to come to mind. But they're getting much more value than Bennett is 4.4. Carter Verhaeghe, 4.1. I think he's a great player. That's a bargain for sure. So you need to make up for it with some bargains. So I think that's a good point. Gustav Forsling has turned in way better. He's a late bloomer that's worth probably way more than 5.75, which they have him locked in for a long, long time. So it's been really smart. But I think the thing to take away, if you're the Predators, is can you have a deep roster that can score and still pay the goalie a lot? And we're talking $10 million for Bobrovsky. And as I keep pointing out, the cap is going to go up. So if the number is around 8 for Saros, it still leaves you, I think, ample room to build the depth if you're smart and make good choices. Now, on the flip side, what is Barry Trotz coveting from the start? What does he shine from the Batman building? The search for the number one center is out there. And the Predators don't have one. Barkov as the number one center, and the Predators almost had him. Like most mock drafts in 2013 had Barkov going fourth to the Predators. The Panthers took him with the second overall pick, and Seth Jones fell to the Predators. Nothing wrong with the Seth Jones pick. Right. I mean, most people had Seth Jones going first, but Barkov has turned out to be a really solid, great two-way player. He doesn't make a lot of headlines. He doesn't score 50 goals, but he is a great two-way center who can score but also shut down the likes of David Pastrnak, Kucherov, and in this series, Artemi Panarin. Like that's what Barkov does. That's what a number one center can do. Be a great offensive player, but also be a guy that you put out there to shut down the other team's top guys. So I can see a model where the Predators pay UC Saros and still have ample room to build top forwards, but Florida has the goalie making $10 million and the number one center making $10 million, and they have found ways to fill out a good deep roster around that. It's a pretty good job, I would say, of how they put that together. Bill Zito is the guy's name that's the general manager. Got to give him props.
Good drafting and good coaching. Getting all the juice out of the squeeze of the lemons that you're paying $4.5 million. I think that's huge as well, because obviously you want to get production from the top of your roster. If you're paying a guy $10 million, he better be your star. He better be that elite forward, or he better give you elite level of production. But it's also about what's underneath. It's also about, okay, who are those, maybe third line guys, maybe third pair defensemen that can still be incredibly productive for you. It's depth, and that's exactly what Barry Trotz talked about in his postseason press conference was we need to be better in the top 9. Yeah, we want that elite forward. Everyone does. Every team in the league is searching for that elite forward. You don't find them very frequently. There's a reason why McDavid and Austin Matthews and guys like that make as much money as they do, and we talk about them as much as we do, is because they're special. And you don't find special players like that every single day. And the Predators, I don't think want to be drafting top 5. I don't think the Predators want to be that bad. So then what's the path? And my question, too, is when we talk about the Florida Panthers, we also have to talk about Matthew Tkachuk.
Yes.
And the trade that they made and how much of a slam dunk that was for the Florida Panthers. So is that Matthew Tkachuk trade out there for the Predators?
I think the Predators have the ability to put together a package if that type of situation comes around. Again, they have the cap space to take on a contract that would be sizable. they have a number of different ways they could offer something in return. So let's not forget that Florida was the President's Trophy winner without Matthew Tkachuk. That was when Andrew Brunette was the coach. And the Matthew Tkachuk thing surfaced. They were willing to trade Jonathan Huberdeau, who had just come off a career year, over 100 points, and a pretty good defenseman as well in Mackenzie Weegar. So they were giving up two big pieces of a team that had won the President's Trophy to create room so that they could bring in Tkachuk.
It's a trade that Barry Trotz would call a little uncomfortable.
It probably
He's
was a little uncomfortable.
Trading up in the draft last year.
But it has been a home run for the Panthers,
No
who
doubt.
by the way, that trade wasn't looking great with about 2 weeks left to go in the regular season a year ago. They almost missed the playoffs. But, of course, they got in. They pulled the big upset over Boston. They went all the way to the final. And Tkachuk has been, a good ringleader, identity guy, making $9.5 million. And, of course, he's a big piece of what they're doing this year. But I see a team that isn't like, you got to do it. Tkachuk's got to do everything. Like, it's really a good team in the way that they are winning. They're winning with waves. And whereas I still see the Oilers as they got to have it from McDavid and Draisaitl, and they can't expect as much from their depth, although they had great team defense against Dallas. The depth guys did come through for them for the most part. So all that to say, I think if a Tkachuk were to come down the pike, and Marner could be a guy like that, right? And I don't know if that's what you want. Like, Tkachuk has got that winning edge. I think he had that, whereas there's questions with Marner. But
Especially
Marner
in
is
the
the type of player that is going to have a big contract, isn't out there for the taking very often, and so they, that is to be determined.
Right, because we talk about
I don't see any other. I don't right now on my radar. I don't see other guys like that.
Like, Natchez isn't a Matthew Tkachuk kind of trade.
Not quite that type of player.
Reinhart. I know that he's a free agent, but would you see Florida moving on from Reinhart at the end of the season? And even if they do, is that even a Matthew Tkachuk kind of move? I don't think so. He's both really good players, Natchez and Reinhart.
Yeah.
Are they Matthew Tkachuk kind of impact on this team?
I
don't know.
Reinhart. Reinhart is an interesting one. He was the second overall pick. They got him in a trade. They traded Devin Levi and a first rounder to Buffalo to get him. He had not been he'd been a good player in Buffalo. Nothing close to what he's been since he's been in Florida, where he's had his 3 best years since that trade. It was a home run trade, and now he just got 57 goals. But I think they're gonna. I don't see how they can let him go to free agency. But if he hit the market, he's gonna make big bucks. Big bucks.
And
he's a little bit of a late bloomer for a second pick.
Yeah.
Right. I think a lot of people, especially Buffalo, are like, "What's he done for us? We're losing with him. Let's flip it. Let's trade him."
How old? So he's 28.
Yeah. Typical age of about to become an unrestricted free agent. But I would have to think he's a top priority for Florida to keep.
I would think if he's that pivotal of a part of the formula and a
57
team
goals.
that got to the Stanley Cup Finals. But we talk about how rare it is and how hard it is to find a guy like that, a top elite center in the draft. They also don't become available very often. Like, Matthew Tkachuk was one of the exceptions to the rule of a great player, a consistently great player that was just unhappy in his current situation, and Florida said, screw it, we're doing it. Because a guy like this doesn't come available very often. Is Marner in that category?
Marner is going to be more expensive because of what he already makes.
Yeah. It's already more expensive than Matthew Tkachuk.
Yes, because Tkachuk, they re-signed at 9.5, and so that's looking like a pretty good investment going forward, especially what they already have and what I think they're going to. I don't think they're going to drop off. I think they're going to be a good team the next few years. Marner already making almost 11, so I don't know. He's a different kind of player.
Yeah.
He is a points getter. And I think the consensus is if you get him out of Toronto, you might see a little mental lift, a little weight lifted, and he might even be a better player going into the next stage of his career than he already is. But what's he like?
Are you going to pay $11.5 million for that?
Maybe. With the cap
Someone
going
will-
up.
someone will.
With the cap going up, somebody is going to.
Someone will.
Yes. Now,
And someone's either gonna
are
look
they
like a
gonna wait it
genius or
out
a
and see if he
doofus.
hits the market
Yeah.
as a free agent next year? That would be different than trading a Huberdeau, Uyghur kind of combination, two established players off your roster. It's going to be a great. There was a long discussion on Elliott's podcast about Craig Berube apparently was seen in a coffee shop talking with Marner, talking through all the things that could play out. It's going to be it's going to be a big saga. I think every week in the offseason. Does he want to stay? Like, what if he stays? But what if he doesn't have a new contract going into next year? The drama that's going to create. Or the drama that you create when you say, I want to be traded. Or the minute you start shopping him around. There's all kinds of pathways it could take.
Berube and Marner in a coffee shop feels like they're asking for a little bit of publicity.
In Toronto? Yeah. I mean, that was weird.
Yeah, let's just meet up at a Starbucks in the most,
Nobody will notice us.
Yeah, in the craziest and busiest corner of the city. Let's go to Starbucks at peak time at 8:30 a.m.
Everybody can see it.
It's not going to start a conversation. That's not
Oh, no,
subliminal
not
in the
at all.
slightest.
Oh, boy.
You ain't slick. I know what you're doing. You could have had a very private conversation and nobody had to know about it. Nope.
Exactly.
Let's pull up to Tim Hortons. And just
Let's
sit there all
valet in
day
the
long.
front. Keep my car in the front, both of them.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a great movie called Soap Dish that Sally Field was in. She was like the soap opera star, but she's a little bit past her prime, and her ego was hurting a little bit. And her agent says, "Okay, come on, let's just go to the mall. Throw your sunglasses on, walk through." She just like needed a little ego stroke, so she go into the mall, and all of a sudden her publicist goes, "Oh my gosh, is that Sally Field? She's here!" And then all of a sudden, all the fans come running over.
Oh
She
my
feels so much
gosh.
better.
Oh,
Like you're
Lord.
attention seeking a little bit. When you go into the
Yeah, that's
Tim
exactly
Hortons?
what
Stroke
they're
that
doing.
ego.
Yeah.
Stroke that ego.
Craig Berube. Get out of here, you bum! Get out of here! I do want to continue this conversation, get into your thoughts and reaction to now that the Stanley Cup final is set, how the Predators can recreate that. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. And in this past segment, we really focused in on Edmonton and Florida. Dallas is still a really great team that was still considered a Stanley Cup contender.
And the Rangers.
New York is a great Rangers. The Rangers are a great team that were very much so Stanley Cup contenders. Those were two incredibly competitive series. And I know they went 6 games. I know it wasn't 7 games of back-to-back, double overtimes, and it was just the difference of a hair, but still, those were Stanley Cup contending teams. What the Predators can take away from those teams, the Rangers, the Stars, and how the Predators can set this in motion this offseason, things and the deals and the players that could be available that could supplement this roster. We'll get into that coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, I want to give some Music City Grand Prix tickets away. So be caller 3 right now to win a pair of tickets to the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix at Nashville Superspeedway. These are 3-day tickets, September 13th through September 15th. You can also purchase your tickets now for the Music City Grand Prix at the Nashville Superspeedway on Friday, September 13th through Sunday, September 15th at musiccitygp.com. As the race and station 1025 The Game has a special offer, and it's for a limited time. Use promo code GAME, G-A-M-E, for a 20% discount right now through June 16th.
Hey, this is Derek Mason, and you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff at Cool Springs MD. I tend to talk about them a lot because they helped me so much as I started to get older. If you have set out to lose weight, which we all have, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. I've been there. I'm sure you are there, and there are countless amount of people that have been in the same situations, but I got a solution for you people. At Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Sometimes you got to come at it at a different angle, people. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge, and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test, supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you, no one else. So if you come in there with your wife or your husband, they're not going to give you to the same sort of program. They're going to be different programs for your body. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. We're going to show you special attention at Cool Springs MD. And that's where your weight loss journey becomes a success story, people.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. We're brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee to bet. Looking at the teams still standing in the NHL, the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers, but I think it's fair to at least expand the conversation to Dallas and with the Rangers. Because if you would have asked me at the beginning of each of the conference finals, I would have said, really, flip a coin. Because those are all four really great teams. All four teams that I think we viewed for a majority of the season, and especially majority of the playoffs, legitimate Stanley Cup contenders. That's what the Predators are trying to be. And it's really complicated to say, okay, well, what do those teams have? What did those teams do? And how can we do that? There was an article on The Athletic kind of highlighting all of the goalie situations of teams in the playoffs. And it was like, okay, well, this guy's old, and this guy's young, and this guy's inexperienced, and this guy's really cheap, but this guy's really expensive. It just kind of showed how much of an inexact science, at least the goalie position is. You expand that to entire rosters, it's a really inexact science. You can't say, okay, well, copy and paste. It's not a formula. If it was a formula, everybody would have Stanley Cups. But just really, what you've taken away from, let's say, those four teams, and more specifically Edmonton and Florida, since those are two teams that will be contending for the Stanley Cup, what are the non-negotiables? What are the boxes that have to be checked?
Okay, well, let's look at the Rangers and the Stars real quick, because those were the number one seeds in each conference. Rangers were the President's Trophy winner. The Stars were the number one seed in the West. So they had the best regular seasons of anybody. How did they do it? Well, I think they both had pretty good depth. We talked about Dallas's ability to draft, that they had the huge home run I would say I call it a trifecta. The 2017 draft, which really was the basis of how they became a contender. And it's allowed them really to overcome a couple of guys, Jamie Benn and Tyler Sagan, that were paid a ton of money that haven't really been up to that. They've been okay players, but it's been compensated because of how well they drafted. And then the infusion of the two young guys, Stankoven and particularly Wyatt Johnston, right? That are super young players that punched above the rate, especially Johnston. For 2 years now, he's been great right out of the gate. And he was a low first-round pick, sort of unexpected to be that good that soon. That's helped build the depth. The Rangers, how did they accelerate in a brief rebuild? They won that lottery in the bubble when they made the postseason, and the Predators were in this group. If you lost in the first round of the qualifying or you didn't make the playoffs, all those teams were thrown in there with an equal chance of winning the first pick, and the Rangers won it. So they got Lafreniere, who's now turned into a really good young player. So that helped their depth. That was a little bit of stroke of good fortune.
It takes a little bit of luck.
Yeah, you need to be a little lucky.
The building process, the process to get to the Stanley Cup final, game by game, draft by draft, year by year, like kind
It
of
takes a lot.
But
Takes some
it's
luck.
also scouts, right?
Strategy.
Talent recognition, evaluation around the league. It's very important. Here's to me the biggest thing about the Rangers and Dallas that I think is interesting here through the prism of what should you do with Saros. Jake Ottinger and Igor Shesterkin are both goalies who are going into the last year of their contract, just like Saros is. Ottinger's a little bit younger. Shesterkin is essentially the same age as Saros. You don't hear one peep from the Rangers or the Stars that they're thinking about trading them or anything like that. They're going to gladly pay those guys big money to stay.
Do they have young phenoms in the minors?
I don't think it matters. I don't think
Goalie
they're
phenoms.
even. Yeah, I don't think so.
I think, but that's I'm saying,
It's not even a thought. It doesn't matter. Like they wouldn't worry about it. They're going to pay those guys big money to stay. Now, those guys have won playoff series. Saros is not, right? So I think it's interesting that they have the goalie. They're not philosophically saying, well, we need to trade the goalie so we can open it up and have more opportunities to sign other guys. I think they are gladly going to keep those guys. Shesterkin kept them in that series against Florida. They were taking on a lot of water. The Florida Panthers were just the better team, I thought, as far as controlling the game, winning the chances, the analytics. But Shesterkin was keeping them in the games. So I think the Rangers are going to pay him a boatload of money to stay and then figure out the rest. So the whole philosophy is, well, you don't really need a great goalie. You just get by with a good goalie. When you have the great goalie, I think you're much more inclined to keep the great goalie, especially if you've had playoff success with them. So I think Ottinger and Shesterkin watch their negotiations over the summer because I think they will affect Saros' negotiation. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
and I think if you're Barry Trotz, you can say, well, Juice, you're great, but we don't think you're going to. I mean, you probably should slot in below both of those guys, right? So again, you're trying to maybe get the best bargain you can.
I think it's a fair negotiation.
Yeah.
Say, look, these guys are consistent Vezina contenders, and as Saros could be in that conversation as well. But when it comes to playoff success, that's the truth. That's the fact. And it's not that you don't think that Saros could win a playoff series. I do think that Saros can win you a playoff series.
Hopefully more than
just
8
hasn't done
series.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully more than
Just
one.
hadn't done it.
He just hadn't done it.
But I think the point is those guys are there won't be any thought of trading a goalie of that caliber. They're going to gladly pay the money and probably way more than $8 million in the next contract to sign those two guys. And I think that would be the smart way to go. So all that to say, I think Saros in the neighborhood of $8 million is $8 million is not that much in the coming years of where the cap is going as far as the percentage, and it won't be anywhere close to the highest paid goalie because Vasilevsky's already well over that. Bobrovsky is already at 10 for the next few years. I'm very curious where Ottinger and Shesterkin get in their next deals, right? Ottinger's in the 4 or 5 range. Shesterkin, I think, is between 5.5 and 6. They're going to get big raises. 10
plus.
I don't know. That's a good question because I do think they'll try to contain it as much as they can. But I gotta say, $10 million for both of those guys is in the ballpark. Especially Shesterkin in New York, he can probably name his price. It may be well over 10, which is fine. So again, Saros at 8, it to me is not an overpayment. It's about where it's a fair deal. Plus, with all of the stuff that we talk about with Nashville, the cost of living, the comfort, the non-tax. I think that's a good value. And maybe it's a little bit below 8. So these will all affect one another, I think, to where I think you maybe in the coming years won't feel as bad as, oh my gosh, we're paying our goalie way, way too much money. Because he won't be the highest paid guy. I
do wonder how big of a factor realistically state income taxes are. When you're talking about negotiations, when it's getting into the nitty gritty of 8 versus 8.5, how much of a selling point is that really? Because it's a factor, absolutely. When you're talking about the dollars and cents, when you're weighing the pros and cons of do I want to re-sign, do I want to hit free agency, do I want to go there, over there, it's absolutely a factor. But how big of a factor is it really? Like, is it something that you thought about whenever you were?
It depends on the player, right?
When the money's that close, I think it then depends on whether the player wants to be there or not. Mm-hmm. If you're paying me 5.5 and that team wants to pay me 6, okay, it's not much difference here. Where do I want to be? Because now you take taxes out of it because the monies are so closely comparable. It's not like, oh, they're offering 5 and they're offering 7. It's like, I'm taking a 7 because no matter how you slice it, I'm getting more over here. So when it's that close, I think it's okay, do I want to stay? How do I think my career is going to progress staying where I'm at now if they're paying me 5.5 as opposed to going somewhere else where they're paying me $6 million? I don't think you think about taxes much unless you're coming from like a Nashville and going to New York or Nashville or going to Canada. Then all of that plays in. That extra $500,000 goes a little bit further for me here than saying, getting traded or signing a contract in Canada somewhere. So I think some guys, and once it's that close, it's like, who gives me the best shot at winning and further in my career?
And I think I've tried to emphasize this. You heard Pekka say it, Pekka Rinne in his conversation with Jared here recently, and Barry Trotz has said it. I think it is a factor, not the end-all, be-all, but it is a factor that UC Saros appears to have expressed pretty strong desire. I like it here. Mm-hmm. I want to stay here. I think we can win here. That does mean something.
Down to.
And so for that works both ways. That helps me if I'm Barry Trotz saying, okay, yeah, I'm more inclined to find a way to keep this guy at the right price. And UC Saros might be willing to give a little bit to say, maybe I'm not going to make the most money here, but it means something to me to stay here, and maybe I'll give a little bit, and we'll find a good ground, especially when the taxes. It will be a story for this Stanley Cup final that Florida is a non-tax state as well. Mm-hmm. It's already surfacing like Florida has benefited from having guys that their money goes a little further, right? Maybe that helped them get a couple of bargain free agents here.
Or they could have just seen which they could have seen the direction the franchise was headed and say, you know what, I'm going there. Yeah. And I think that's what some of it boils down to is if say, for instance, insert UC back in here. He said he already liked being here. Well, this organization, the direction they're headed in. Mm-hmm. So you're probably more than likely, beside taxes, to put that aside, but you're more inclined to stay because you know the vision and the direction for this team. You go somewhere else, you may not know that unless they are a consistent, dominant, winning team. Then, okay, going in, okay, this is what we're going to be. But if you're going and it's a team that's still building, well, I don't know what direction y'all going in. I haven't played. I'd rather stay here in Nashville. I know the direction. We're good. I know the direction. I played with all these guys for a considerable amount of time. Okay, I'll take less, but it doesn't necessarily has anything to do with the taxes per se. It's I know this organization. I know where they're headed. I know the mind frame. I play with these guys. I'm used to them, so I'm going to stay.
What about to the Tkachuk conversation of, is that Matthew Tkachuk kind of move out there for the Predators to make in the offseason, which has proven to be incredibly lucrative for the Panthers? Florida was a President's Trophy winning team when Matthew Tkachuk was on the market.
Right.
So,
and sort of out of nowhere, but they had become really good over the 2 previous seasons.
And how much of it was...
It's not like this rich tradition of
right.
winning, but all of a sudden they looked like they were a place that started to know what they were doing to go along with the tax advantage of that. And obviously playing in South Florida, it's kind of a nice area. If you like the beach, that kind of thing.
If
you're playing
warm in the winter.
Weather's beautiful all the time,
Right.
it seems like.
But as a lot of people point out, they stunk for a long, long time, despite all those advantages. So they're doing something in addition to where they're located to put together an attractive place. Just like I think that's what Barry Trotz feels like he's got going. He's like, we want to be a destination. We've got a good reputation. Whether you're a young single player and like the scene that Nashville's got, we got that. If you like family life, we got that too. Like the reputation around the league is a good thing. It wasn't always like that, but it's like that now. And so I think Barry Trotz feels like he is an attractive place, a magnet to build winners. So you got options here. So all that to say, if somebody's offering a number 1 center for UC Saros, then obviously that's a game changer, right?
Totally.
That's a philosophical conversation that you would have to look at. But besides that, I think having the ability to sign Saros for a bigger, for a raise going forward, and still feeling like you've got the room to build a winner, I don't think is nearly the concern that it was a few years ago. I don't think Florida is worried about their goalie making $10 million right now, and I don't think the Rangers or the Stars are going to have any qualms about giving their current goalie a bigger raise that's going to throw them way past what Saros will be in his next contract.
And I think that one reason why Florida can feel so okay with and confident with paying their goalie as much money as they do is they've got the goal scorers as well.
Yeah.
That's the difference with the Nashville Predators is you got a great goaltender. You're looking for the goal scorers. You're looking for that guy or guys or depth with scoring.
Yep. They need more depth.
Yep. I want to get into your thoughts on this. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com. Matthew from Jolton, Texan says, I say Ottinger will get 8 to 9 and Igor Shesterkin could get 10 to 12. 12 is massive, but I mean, New York might do it. I mean, that's how valuable he is.
And he didn't have a great regular season. He for him anyway.
Yeah.
It was a little bit, and they still won the President's Trophy. Like Jonathan Quick, the veteran, gave them excellent backup minutes where they won a lot of games. But Shesterkin, when the lights came on, he was awesome in the playoffs. So his stock is sky high.
Sky high, and it should be. And I wonder, does UC Saros' representation look at it and say, okay, well, now our price went up? Because Shesterkin is making, let's just say, hypothetically, let's say it could be 12. That's a lot. That's a massive contract. Does that bump everyone else's prices up? That's the market.
It's a
That's
fair
how
question.
Market work.
It's a fair question.
How market works.
But I think if you're Barry Trotz, you're saying, okay, you haven't won playoff series. Ottinger's won some playoff series. Shesterkin's won some playoff series. I still think there's a slotting there. I don't think look, his representation could make that argument.
Yeah.
But if I'm Barry Trotz, I can't allow that to sway me from what I think he's worth. I think $8 million is plenty. Is a good ballpark for what I think he's worth. All things considered, I'm trying to get a little bit under. Saros will probably try to get a little bit over. So I have to stick to my guns on the value of the player and weigh what somebody might be willing to trade me for him. This is why you always keep that avenue open. If somebody makes you a great offer and says, maybe that's more than if Juice wants to make 9 or 10, right? That's a different mindset.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got to make 9 or 10. Well, let me look back over here. Let's go through these offers again of all the phone calls we had.
Now, I think he would have to, if sort of you believe the ceiling is $8 million, somewhere around there. If he does indeed go somewhere else, they would have to pay him more than $8 million. Don't you think? Because say if he goes,
you're saying if he hits the open market,
hits the open market, He goes up north somewhere.
Yeah. Then you can get two or three.
They would have
teams
to
bidding.
pay him more money just to equal sort of the money that Nashville was paying him. Like $8 million in Nashville compared to $8 million in Canada or $8 million in New York, somewhere like that. It's a little bit different.
Yeah, that's
they would have to pay him a lot more money.
Ask for it.
Excuse me?
I would say if I'm UC Sarah, people, I would ask for it. But if I'm that other team, I wouldn't feel the obligation to have to.
That's
pay
why.
more.
That's why I said that to say this: the advantage is the Nashville Predators. Nashville Predators have the advantage in this, no matter what, because we can. Even though we may not pay you, if we say $8 million is what we're paying you, if you go somewhere else without state tax or something else, they're going to have to pay you $10 million or a little bit more just to equal or come close to what we're paying you.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, because if they're paying you
right, this was
nine,
a big
let's just say
argument with the
$9 million, paying you an extra $1 million more and $1.5 million more, then here, after taxes, yeah, you still may get a little bit more money, but is it worth it in the big scheme of things?
Yeah, this was a big discussion with the Forsberg thing. Remember, there's some website you can go to and say, if I make $8 million in Nashville, what does that equate to in Los Angeles or New York? Or you put any city in there, literally, and it will give you some rough conversion of what that means with cost of living and all of that stuff. And it's significant for sure, which is why a lot of the Canadian teams think that there should be a modification of the CBA because
I think there should be,
because the taxes in Canada are so different than any city in the USA. Even though the players are paid in American dollars, the tax structure definitely puts them at a disadvantage.
You're still going to get taxed.
Now you can probably get a lot more endorsement money playing for a Canadian team than if you're playing for the Florida Panthers or even the Dallas Stars. You know, you're just not going to get the opportunities that you get in those big hockey markets where hockey's everything in that city. You can make more money that way. But it's a really interesting question. And again, it comes down to what is the player's preference. And if I'm hearing from UC Saros, I want to be here, I think you got to be willing to work with them a little bit. But it's a good question of, is the market going to change? Because when the salary cap goes up,
the market will change.
Teams are going to have more money to spend in general. And I do think there are some teams desperate for upgrading goalie. As much as we downgrade, I still think it is as important of a position that there is in sports outside of the quarterback in football. I still think it's an extremely important position. Now, can you have a guy that's not as talented rise to the occasion? Like Stuart Skinner is not a great goalie, but he's risen to the occasion enough. Even though he kind of lost his job, he was almost cracking, and he's come back and had some solid performances to get them to this thing. He's never going to make $8 million.
Is the perfect example of that. Solid, not great, but rose to the occasion at the right time in 2019.
Right. And also, I look down the road too. We're in this cycle now where there's this little trend of, you can get by with a goalie making $4 or $5 million, and maybe he'll play great. You put a great team around him. I still think it could cycle back to what it's been for most of Stanley Cup history, which is you need a good goalie. A goalie's important. A goalie is just like a quarterback. Like, nobody makes a bigger impact on the game. Nobody can lose you the game quicker than a bad goalie performance in the wrong game. So I still think there will be a big value on goalies. So this sets the table for it continues to be a really compelling summer, especially we now throw Ottinger and Shesterkin into the mix of what's their next deal going to be. It's going to be talked about alongside of Saros.
It's going to be some tea.
It's going to be some tea.
Get your team signed up now to play in the 615 Open at Hermitage Golf Course on Thursday, June 20th. There will be delicious sample offerings from Prince's Hot Chicken, Bavarian Beer House, and so much more. So enjoy Michelob Ultra and other adult beverages at our sampling stations. Afterward, dinner is provided by Burger Republic. Sign up today at 615open.com.
Let's talk about Zen Sports, people. The new sports book in Tennessee that's bringing sports betting to a whole new level. And I mean that literally, not figuratively, but literally. People, when you sign up for Zen Sports, you'll automatically earn up to $1,000 no danger first wager. If your first bet loses, okay, you'll be reimbursed for the amount of your bet up to $1,000. Plus, Zen Sports offers a true odds on all parlays and boosted same-game parlays for all Tennessee sports teams. That means boosted up to 20% over other books in Tennessee. And there's even more good news, people. We love good news on a Monday. Zen Sports offers a one-of-a-kind VIP reward program. If you qualify, you'll earn monthly comps at sporting events. There are a bunch of them going on, concerts, you know we have them. You name it, even sport book bonuses. The VIP program is by invite only. So if you feel that your Zen Sports play qualifies for the VIP consideration, check out the program details and apply at zensports.com/VIP. So what are you waiting for, people? The daily same game parlay boost go quick. So get going and download their app at zensports.com today. That's Zen Sports, where betting just got better. And remember, gambling problems, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 years or older to bet here in Tennessee.
The time has finally come. The deal I've been waiting for since I was a little kid. Being doubted my whole career, not being highly recruited, not being the first receiver off the draft board. This whole journey wasn't easy for me. First off, I want to thank the man above. Without God, wouldn't be possible at all. To be given a gift to play football at the highest level, it's a blessing, it's an honor. My mom and dad, thank you. This is a journey for all of us, and y'all stood with us every step of the way.
That was Justin Jefferson, who released a video on social media this morning right after the news dropped. He just signed a monster extension. This came in from Adam Schefter earlier this morning. 4-year deal, $140 million for Justin Jefferson. $110 million of that is guaranteed. So it's averages out to about $35 million.
Is it an extension?
An extension.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, so he's playing on...
He's playing on the final
5th year deal.
Yeah, he's playing on the fifth year
of his deal.
Yeah.
And so that'll come
Kick in
into
next
effect the
year.
next year.
Yeah.
So it's a 4-year extension, $140 million, $35 million AAV. So Justin Jefferson is now the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history.
I think we all saw this coming.
I-
Congratulations
deserves
to him.
every
He
cent of
deserves
it.
every penny of it. But next in line is CeeDee Lamb. And CeeDee Lamb is going to get probably what Justin Jefferson got, or just maybe a tad bit more.
Jamar Chase is up too.
And then Jamar Chase is along the board. So he may be, the crazy part about it, he may be the highest paid receiver for maybe
A couple
a couple of days. Yeah.
It's a funny story about that. In the early 1990s, and in fact, it might have been 1990, Major League Baseball got a new contract. They had just, the owners got nailed for collusion for trying to keep free agents down. So
What?
they got
Owners colluding?
they got busted bad.
Big time.
It was bad. So they had to compensate all these players. So on top of that, they got a new TV contract from CBS, much more lucrative than the one before. So these owners, they were, number one, they had to sort of make it right with the players. Number two, they had a windfall of money. And Ricky Henderson signed a deal with the A's. Ricky Henderson, of course, one of the all-time greats, but a real charismatic guy, not afraid to talk about himself in the first person and everything like that.
Charismatic is a nice word.
He signs a deal with the A's to become the highest paid player in baseball history. But about 3 or 4 weeks later, 4 or 5 other guys blew right by his contract, and he wanted to renegotiate his contract.
Like, dude, you can't do that. You can't do that. No.
So I don't think Justin Jefferson is going to do the Ricky Henderson. He's just got to take it. Like, he's the first in, though, but he's got to know.
I'll take it.
He's got to know that he's setting the bar, and then others might surpass that pretty soon. But they were like, Ricky, it's guaranteed. You can't go back. Like, he wanted to hold out from training camp. Like, no, we just signed this deal.
We just signed
No,
a deal.
you just signed it. You can't do that.
It is crazy to see how the wide receiver market has evolved over the last couple of years. Like when A.J. Brown was negotiating a new deal, what was the number he was asking from the Titans? Was it
20?
24? Or was it 20?
I think it was 20.
I feel like 20-ish.
20-ish.
20?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's.
I know Justin Jefferson's out here making $35 million a year. And look, I don't think A.J. Brown is Justin Jefferson, but A.J. Brown is a damn good receiver. So just over the last few years, that was the 2021 draft.
Yeah.
That was a 2021 draft.
No, it was because he's been in Philly 2 years now.
It was a 2022 draft. That was 2 years ago.
No. You got to understand, he spent 2 years with the Titans, 2 or 3 years with the Titans. I'm talking about AJ.
And he was traded the day of the 2022 draft.
Oh, okay. You're not. I thought you were talking about his draft class. No,
He was 2019?
Yeah, 19.
18?
Yeah.
And there were a lot of receivers that were coming up on the same part of their contract that wanted to reset the market.
Exactly.
Debo Samuel.
and they won.
Hey, A.J. Brown. The whole
whose
Instagram
mom? Was it
Live.
Debo's mom
It was Debo
that was
Samuel's
on
mom.
the-
Hey, A.J. Brown.
But this is
a
it's going to
crazy
continue
summer.
to go this way.
It is. It's not going to I don't think it's going to slow down anytime soon.
No, because they're making more money, collective bargaining. When they sign their new deal in some years, it's going to be even more money, which means the pay scale is going to go up. This is just the cost of doing business. Next up is CeeDee Lamb, and CeeDee Lamb's going to get more money than probably Justin Jefferson. And, okay. But, guys like AJ want another deal. Tyreek Hill wants another deal because they see how lucrative the money is at this point. And they all were waiting on Justin Jefferson to sign his deal. Again, I think CeeDee Lamb may get more than Justin Jefferson, but that's not because I think CeeDee Lamb is better than Justin Jefferson. I think they're both. Give me one or the other. It don't matter which one you give me. You take CD, give me Justin. You take Justin, give me CD, because both of those guys are terrific.
Yeah.
But I just think it's the time when you sign that new deal. I heard this morning, he doesn't deserve to get more money than Justin Jefferson. Who says that? Who says that CeeDee Lamb doesn't deserve to get more money than Justin Jefferson? It's when you sign it. Mm-hmm. That's who gets the most money. Jefferson signed his today, got his new contract today. Tomorrow, CeeDee Lamb may sign his that may be a couple of dollars more than Justin Jefferson, but he's earned the right to get that based upon what he's been doing.
And I think the quarterback market is the perfect example of that, of Daniel Jones
Yeah.
signing the deal that he signed.
It's just the way it is.
Daniel Jones kind of stinky. He makes a whole heck of a lot of money.
You have, because the sport has changed drastically. It has changed drastically. You have guys that are okay players making a lot of money, and congrats to them because this league has advanced. The money has gotten greater, and those guys are at the top. The Jeffersons, the Lambs, the Browns, Chase, those guys, Hill, they're raising up everybody underneath them with their contracts.
I want to get TD's reaction to the deal as well, kind of what that means for the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans got to feel a direct impact of that on the wide receiver market. Teron Davenport will join us coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
say, let's go. Get us a big man. Let's go.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 1025, 1063, The Game and The Game Nashville app. We're streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every single day. And we are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. We had Titans OTAs last week. We'll also have practice coming up tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. Joining us now to break it all down is TD Teron Davenport, brought to you by ESPN Bet Sportsbook. TD, I do want to get into what you've seen in the practice field, what you heard from some players and the coaches. But first, the news of the day, the breaking news this morning: Justin Jefferson signs the massive 4-year, $140 million extension. And look, I think that's fair. That's totally fair, and he deserves every single cent of it. But what does that mean for the Titans in terms of the wide receiver market? Are the Titans going to feel that if they do, in fact, decide to extend DeAndre Hopkins, whether it's now or after this upcoming season?
No, I think the two things are really related, honestly. Justin Jefferson is a player that's just entering his prime, and DeAndre Hopkins is a player who has seen his prime, but is still a high-caliber wide receiver. So it's totally different situations. I don't think they're related at all. And if the Titans decide to extend DeAndre Hopkins, it'll just be based off of what they perceive his value to be and what he feels his value being, and that coming to a match.
And what do you make of the wide receiver market? We were just talking about how just a few years ago when A.J. Brown was talking contract negotiations, he was asking the ballpark of about 20, 22, 24. And I thought 2022, 24 was massive. Now, fast forward just a couple of years, $35 million for Justin Jefferson. The wide receiver market has absolutely ballooned. What do you make of that? And does it slow down anytime soon? Is there going to be a shift anytime soon?
Yeah, I mean, it's going up $10 million per since A.J. Brown signed his deal in 2021. So, I mean, it's just one of those things where things, or 2022 rather, it's inflation, right? And I think you look at the way it works, Justin Jefferson's deal is now the floor for CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase. And then it's going to be the floor, theirs will be the floor for the next guy to come along, whether that's Brandon Ayuk or whoever it should be. So it's just the way things work. The interesting part of all of it is, and I said this on the TD Power Hour, with Stillman and company on Friday rather. The thing that's interesting to me is, does it at some point become kind of like the running back situation where you draft a guy, he comes in, he makes immediate impact, you ride it out for that rookie deal, and then you draft another one. And I think when you look at the way the receiver position is being approached, I mean, you got 10, 11-year-olds knowing how to run the full route tree and knowing how to convert their routes against different coverage and things like that. So it's starting so much earlier with these 7-on-7 camps and just the tournaments and everything. So receivers are coming into the league much more ready to play and have that impact. And I wonder if that's going to kind of curb the way things are going for these receivers that are established getting money.
Yeah, well, hopefully it doesn't happen. But the money is getting so large, TD. The owners may look at it, like you said, like the running back position, where the NFL is geared toward throwing the football and scoring points. So, we can use you up for 3-4 years, maybe 5 years, and then draft another one and use that person up for 3 to 5 years, and then keep that cycle going. That's the only way they can control sort of the monies that are being paid to wide receivers moving forward. But even that, I mean, they're still going to get top guys are going to get top money. It's the other guys underneath that that will be affected.
No doubt. And I think that's the way you've seen the running back position go, right? Derrick Henry got his money. Mm-hmm. Other players, they've gotten their money. And I think that's the way it's going to go. Nick Chubb, right? He got his money. Mm-hmm. Jonathan Taylor got his money. So there were others, who didn't, Austin Eckler, et cetera. So, yeah, you're right. I can see it going that way.
Now, TD, we had a conversation earlier about the Titans and what to expect. There was this article put out about the rankings based on analytics and everything else, and it ranked the Titans, as you probably know, toward the end, the bottom half of this league as far as win total and what they expect from them. What do you expect from this team? Because My thing is the players they went out and got doesn't look to me as if they are saying, okay, this is just going to be a season where if we get 8-9 wins, that'd be great, but we are building something for the long run. I look at it as, no, they want to be in contention to make the playoffs at the end of the season with the guys that they brought in.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's the goal. And, I mean, the work that goes into just enduring a full season is enough work to not settle for being mediocre, right? And just the level of competitor, just from player to person in the building, everybody is not going to settle for just being average. The goal is to make the playoffs and win it all. And I think if you're not thinking that's your goal and not setting that as what you want to go out and do, I think you probably need to find a new profession or you're in the wrong field. So, yeah, 100%. They're looking to win it all, and, I mean, that should be the goal, absolutely.
Now, what other areas of this team do you think, moving forward, do you think need to be upgraded? Now, we know what they've done with the offensive line and the wide receiver position. They solidified the corner position. Is it the safety position and the inside backer position? Do they need to add depth somewhere else?
The inside backer position is an area where I think they're good. I think you keep Jack Gibbons. You don't release him. I think you have he and Cedric Gray compete for that starting job. And don't forget about Otis Reese. This is a guy who came in late, and he had some pretty solid games, So he's someone else in the mix, and we already know that Kenneth Murray is going to be used in a certain way there. So I think they're good at inside backer. I'm really intrigued by the outside linebacker, the edge position, so to speak, because I want to see the progression that Caleb Murphy has made. I was watching him, and he looks, like he got some pop. And again, this is just on the sled and watching him through practice, but he looks like he's somebody that could help out. And then Rashad Weaver has kind of slimmed down and just got like a more streamlined physique. So I want to see what he does. But I could see them adding, whether it's, bringing in a Shane Ray who, was there for rookie minicamp or signing a guy like Carl Lawson or something like that. I could see them doing that. I think, at this point, there really aren't any moves that they could make that would make you say, okay, you know what, that pushed them over the edge. They're going to win the AFC South now. I don't think that's the case, but you could always add depth. And I say it over and over again about that safety position. Watch out for 39, Matthew Jackson. He's a guy I think that could come in and help out, especially when they go like big nickel-type situations.
All right, Teron, you got to give us a quick rundown of what it was like in New York to see Darryl Strawberry's number 18 retired.
Oh, man, it was beautiful, man. Got to get out there. I had basically front row seats in right field, so, it was right at his old stomping ground, so to speak. But it was great, man. Eric Davis was there, so that was cool. A guy who wasn't a Met that I really liked. Just seeing all the old timers there was great. I mean, the game itself, was what it was. At least Mark Bienzo was a guy, he's one of the baby Mets, Willy, that I've, really been high on throughout the process.
Yep, you have.
Seeing him hit a home run. But yeah, it was just really cool. Just kind of being there, it always, I text my lady and told her, like, I always feel like a little kid because this brings back, memories, good memories when I was a kid, getting off the train and going to the stadium and being in the parking lot and all that. So it was awesome.
We have to cling to nostalgia these days after the sixth loss after leading after 8 innings in the last month yesterday. Times are tough.
Yeah, really hard on the boulevard, man.
It's hard on the boulevard. Teron, I want to get back to Seth Walder's stuff here because it really got us going in a conversation. I don't think you're going to see a ton of predictions nationally where the Titans are much higher than where Walder has them, right? They're all different ways of coming up with it. So how would you couch that if you're Callahan, if you're Carthon, in a sort of, here's the outlook, would you embrace the underdog role a little bit knowing that that's what's coming? Do you think that's the way to go? Or should you continue to try to convince people that you're better than this?
I don't think you try to convince anybody, right? I think it's just a matter of just being focused on your own goal and having those blinders on. I don't think, as an athlete, you should really concern yourselves with these lists and things that come out, because it's just that. It's entertainment, right? And it's June, so you're going to see all those types of things, and I wouldn't be concerned about it. I would just focus on putting the work in and just going ahead and proving myself right? And proving that the work that I put in was worth the result that we're producing on the field. That's how I would look at it.
With the money that they spent, I know this is going to be a big theme of the season coming up, is the money they have spent in free agency to try to plug a lot of holes, and it looks good. As you look at the roster the next 2 or 3 years, what would be your concern level of, okay, let's say you have another year, maybe you even keep DeAndre Hopkins around for another year past this one, or Ridley works for a couple years. But as you get close to the new stadium opening, how tough will it be to replace these players eventually with younger foundational players? Because that's the tough needle to thread, I would say, is these guys will hopefully give you a good security blanket to help develop Will Levis, but there has to be something coming in behind some of these veterans who probably realistically are only going to give you between 1 and 3 years of production.
Yeah, there is, and the beauty of that is the draft, right? And you look at some of these teams where they'll draft a position, you'd be like, man, they didn't need that. Why did they draft that, right? And here it is. It's because they drafted that position to be prepared for a guy who's eventually going to be filtered out, whether it's because of performance level or because of cost. So I think the best way that they could do that is draft wisely. They need these draft picks to hit, and I'm talking about like from top to bottom. You know, you use 7 draft picks, you need at least 4 of those guys to hit and eventually be contributors, and that's the best way to be able to just kind of keep loading that wagon and keep things moving.
Now, TD, what did you see last week in OTAs in regards to the offense? I know that's going to be the running story, how fast this offense can gel, with the new players, new head coach implementing this new scheme. What did you see last week, and what do you expect to see the next couple of days?
Yeah, I thought last week it was pretty good. It was a 3rd and short session that we got to see, and I thought that the offense their completion rate was pretty high. You know, Will Levis did take a shot or 2 down the field, but for the most part, he was hitting the short passing stuff. I like the combo routes and things that I'm seeing, and you can kind of tell the concept of what Brian Callahan and that offense is looking to do, in short yardage. So that was good. I really like the enjoyment, and it's funny actually. I was sitting in bed this morning when I first woke up and just thinking of ways, that they'll use Spears and Pollard together, and I drew up a couple of things myself. But it's just because I was pretty excited seeing what Callahan was doing with those guys. So, those are all some things to be excited about. I think this offense is definitely going to be more modern, and it's going to be something that, people in the game of Madden, they might pick the Titans playbook a little more often now.
Talking with TD, Teron Davenport. And speaking of that, of Spears and Pollard, and we've talked a lot about the receivers, rightfully so, and the offensive line. I'm at least guilty of not talking about the running back position enough because this run game is going to look significantly different. Not only do you not have Derrick Henry, that's a massive factor in it. It's also a new offense, new philosophy, new play callers. But how do you expect this playing out with Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears? Is there one going to be kind of more of the bell cow back? Is it going to be split pretty close to 50-50? Is Tajay Spears going to be your pass catcher? How do you expect this or predict this to kind of play out between these two running backs?
Yeah, I think it's going to be balanced, honestly. Yeah. And, I wonder, going with the hot hand part of it, I wonder how that's going to play into factor because, sometimes it'll just be a guy's day, and you got to feed him when it's his day. So I'm curious how it's going to work out, but I think just outside looking in, I think it's going to be a more, shared load and a distribution of labor, so to speak. And it's funny because Brian Callahan had kind of referred to that when I asked him about the running backs, being devalued in the game of football itself. I asked him that at the Combine, and he touched on the distribution of labor side of it. So I think it's going to be split.
talking with TD, and one of many reasons why I'm bummed that we can't be out there at OTAs, of course, it's right in the middle of our show, is because I want to see Bill Callahan. I want to see how he interacts with the players. I want to see his process. I want to see, Olga and Bertha, how he's working with the offensive line, and of course how he's working with J.C. Latham. But what have you taken away from Bill Callahan and his process? What you can tell us so far?
Yeah, so much detail in coaching, and it's not the type of coaching where it's like, screaming on them or any of that. It is literal teaching, and when I say detail, I'm talking about all the way down to making sure that J.C. Latham's forehead is against Olga or Bertha, against the sled, to start it out correctly, to make sure that his positioning is right. I mean, it's amazing, the detail. And I watched with Trevor Maddich, and, I said it before, I'll say it again. You could tell how much he appreciated and loved it because he was watching those guys do the drills the same way I watch Kerry Champion when she's on TV. So I know that there was a lot of appreciation and love for what he was seeing, and it's that's the way it is, man. And just the progression and then the positive reinforcement, how excited he gets when they get it right. It's fun to watch.
To be able to watch one of the greatest offensive line coaches in the league, if not the best offensive line coach in the league, to be able to watch that with Trevor Maddich, he has such a wealth of information at the offensive line position. Yeah. A couple of things that we've heard over the last couple of weeks from players that made us all raise our eyebrows a little bit. A couple of weeks ago, Will Levis said, we feel like we just have a more sense of ownership. And Chigakonkwo said, look, we feel like we're playing more free. We've always been free in the locker room, but we feel a lot more free on the field. Several things that some players have alluded to of just the different vibe and the different feel from the last regime to this regime. Do you feel that? And what do you take away from players kind of alluding to how different things might feel in the building?
Yeah, I can't say I feel that because we haven't been out for an extended period of time. Mm-hmm. This week would be a good opportunity to kind of get a little more of a gauge because it's back-to-back-to-back days, so I'm looking forward to that. What I think of it is just basically it's the result of two different coaching styles, right? And it's not to say one is better than the other because I feel like we get too caught up in Mike Vrabel wasn't a good coach. He was a darn good coach, and he had some really good coaches as well. And this organization, they achieved a high level of success through him. So it's not to say one was wrong and one was right. I think just for what these guys needed in this situation, I think it's perfect for them just to have this type of start. And anytime, it's just like a new relationship, right? You get into a new relationship, everything is, it's golden. And, there's beautiful music playing all the time and all of that type of stuff. And then as you get into it, the realness sinks in. So I think, they're in that period right now, that honeymoon phase, and hopefully for their sake, it's a good marriage, right? And things continue to work out and be on the high note that it's on.
It's the classic case of everything that my ex did was horrible and everything that my new significant other does is amazing and awesome and can do no wrong. TD, Teron Davenport, always appreciate your time and your insight. Before we let you go, TD, please tell us about ESPN Bet.
Oh, yeah, for sure. ESPN Bet is ready to take you through all the huge moments this summer. It's the exclusive sportsbook of ESPN, and it has it all. That includes offers and promotions from Scott Van Pelt and Stephen A. Smith. From the playoff, you get $100 in bonus bets for making any sportsbook bet. So download ESPN Bet today. What a play. You must be 21 or older and in Tennessee. For problem gambling support, call or text the TN Red Line at 800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. See the app for details.
Thanks, TD. You're the best. We'll catch up next
week.
All right,
appreciate it. Yep.
I appreciate it. TD, Teron Davenport, brought to you by ESPN Bet Sportsbook. We gave away some Music City Grand Prix tickets at the beginning of the show, but so many people called in. So many people wanted them. Only one person could get the pair of tickets. Let's give away even more. Pick a number, D-Mase.
Nick looking at me like, please don't pick.
Just don't say
don't, 80. Don't
just
pick
don't
80.
say
Nothing
100.
over 6, all right? Okay. Nothing over 6.
Caller number 3.
Be caller number 3 right now, 615-737-1025, to win a pair of 3-day tickets to the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix at Nashville Superspeedway, September 13th through September 15th. You can also purchase your tickets right now for the Music City Grand Prix at the Nashville Superspeedway on Friday, September 13th through the 15th at musiccitygp.com. As the race and station 1025 The Game has a special offer that's for a limited time. Use promo code GAME, G-A-M-E, for a 20% discount right now through June 16th.
Lift it to right. That's going to drop for a base hit, and High Point has done it. They have walked off Vanderbilt and win it 10-9, and the celebration is on.
Willy. Man, not a great weekend for Vanderbilt in the Clemson Regional over the
It's
weekend.
tough.
They got just clapped against Coastal Carolina. 13-3.
And the Mets
Got
lost
walked off
Saturday and
against High
Sunday
Point.
as well. Yeah.
I appreciated all
Yeah.
of the low point jokes on Twitter, though.
Willie,
Little,
About the Mets or Vanderbilt?
both.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a very fair
Yeah.
question that you asked
Yeah.
for clarification.
Both worlds. I'm in
But
both
high
worlds.
point, low point.
So what do you
Yeah.
do now?
Lindsay Rowley, too, to her credit, has not rubbed it in on me. She is a High Point Panther. Played volleyball there back in the
High
day.
Point Panthers.
Yeah, North
Where?
Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's the first time I think they've even been to the NCAA tournament.
Has it? And they beat Vandy? Whew.
Yeah.
Okay.
Walked
Vandy.
him off.
They walked
Okay,
him
man,
off.
yeah.
It was a crazy game, too. Vanderbilt got up 5-0, then trailed 9-5.
They made a comeback.
Made a comeback, tied it up, and then lost in the bottom of the ninth.
High Point. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking of the name. When I saw that High Point, I'm like, who in the hell is High Point? When I first saw it,
Yeah.
I'm like, who in the hell is High Point?
It's just like any NCAA tournament when you're like, wait, is that a real school?
Exactly. I'm like,
I remember when
okay.
one of the most
Wofford.
One of the most fun games I ever got to broadcast was Belmont's win at Missouri. Belmont's first or second year of being Division I. And I swear to God, if the crowd was 16,000 and it was packed and Missouri was in the top 25 and Rick Bird's Belmont team beat them and I got to call it, it was an awesome. I guarantee you about 90% of the people in that crowd would not have been able to tell you that Belmont's in Nashville. Like they're like, oh yeah, well I'll go to the game. You know, we'll see our team get a win.
Yeah.
And Belmont just shocked them. They were like, who are these guys? What's Belmont? It's the same thing with like, who's High Point? Where's
Yeah.
High Point?
Where is High Point?
So that's tough.
Oral Roberts.
Yeah.
But it was very tough just to watch them recover the way they did
Yeah.
to get to the tournament, earn a 2 seed with a really good performance in the SEC tournament, and then have everything go wrong. Like J.D. Thompson was probably the savior of the season with his wins over Tennessee and Kentucky on consecutive Sundays. He gets the ball in game 1 against Coastal Carolina, and he deserved to get it, and he just didn't have it. He did not have his sharp stuff. He hit a couple of guys. He hung a couple pitches with 2 strikes. He couldn't get out of an inning in the second inning. 2 outs, 2 or 3 straight hits. It just everything unraveled. Plus, on top of that, they lost their shortstop and leadoff hitter, Jonathan Vastine. He got sick. Mm-hmm. He almost didn't make it to the plate in the bottom of the first. They had to delay the game. Mm-hmm. Then he got sick on the field, which I'm glad they didn't show on TV. That would have been really rough. But then he couldn't play the next day, so he was done. I mean, that's tough to lose him. Like he's a key guy. Then Davis Diaz in the first game fouled 2 consecutive pitches off his knee, was able to sort of gut it out, but he wasn't the same player after that. They lost their catcher, Alan Espinal, in the top of the first in the second game. He's their cleanup hitter, tremendous defensive catcher, one of the bright spots of the season. Having said all that, right, it was clear that this Vanderbilt team, with some of the injuries they had during the season and just their overall what they had, is down a notch from the championship level that we've almost taken for granted for all these years. And that's what I kind of try to be fair about is I know everybody's hurting. I know the basketball team's been bad. The football team's struggled, right? And you're clinging to the baseball team, like give us the joy, right, if you're a Vanderbilt fan. And now they've had a couple of off years, right, especially this year. This was tough because they got blown out a bunch of times when you're just not used to seeing that. So they're down a notch. But don't take for granted all of the years, right? It's just hard to be that good every single year. And I'm hoping that it will cycle back up.
And that's what I was going to ask you. With the addition of Texas and Oklahoma, and I think, Caroline, you mentioned this earlier at the beginning of the show, before we even really got into talking about Vanderbilt. With the addition of those 2 teams and other teams, how does the future look for Vandy moving forward? Because it seems like, unless, coach starts to truly, accept and embrace the NIL, they're going to keep on falling behind. Not to say that they're not going to have good seasons, but we're used to Vandy being one of the top teams.
That's the standard that Tim Corbin has set.
Exactly. And
There's
now
high
it seems like they're going to be
reason.
slipping further and further behind some of these teams that are now coming into the SEC.
Yeah, it's a fair question, because I think what's shaping up is just looking at baseball with the way that college athletic is going. I think the best players, especially with no Pac-12 baseball, all the best players in California, whereas maybe a high percentage of them would have stayed and played for UCLA or for USC or Arizona State, they're going to come to the SEC because
Probably.
that's where money is. That's where the biggest crowds are now.
That's where the best teams are.
The best teams are. Maybe the Big 12 will get some, the ACC will get some, but it's only going to get stronger. And now the Texas and Oklahoma are coming in to the league, and those are big money programs. Vanderbilt beat Texas earlier this season, so it's not like they've cratered or anything like that. It's just getting back up to that championship level is probably a bigger challenge than it's ever been. What I'm seeing, and I haven't talked to Tim Corbin in depth about this, but we've talked about this a lot. What does Tim Corbin really value? He loves taking the high school recruits that he's gone all across the country to find, the best of the best, and shaping them for 3-4 years under his watch, developing them. Number one, that's harder to do, because if you're not playing in one place after a year or two, you're much more inclined to hop over to another team that's offering you some money or maybe has a better opening at your position, right? So you have that going on. Number two, you have just the money in general, that I still think Vanderbilt is coming along, but probably behind. It's not as easy for them for that. The other thing I'm seeing with some of his recruits, right, let's take Davis Diaz, right, who is a very talented player. He was a high recruit, but he has stayed the 2 or 3 years. He hasn't turned into a frontline stud 350 hitter that just anchors the middle of your lineup. So I think they're into that a little bit too. They've got some older players that have stayed and have developed. They just haven't developed into a Brian Reynolds or a Mike Yastrzemski or a Tony Kemp, J.J. Bleday, Austin Martin, the kind of guys that just dominate SEC hitters. It wasn't a dominating lineup, right? And so sometimes that's just what happens. When they have had little down cycles, I think that's part of it. The position players that have stayed loyally haven't turned into stars like some of them have, even though they were all really high recruits. And the same is true for the pitchers. Carter Holton, the last 2 years, has been sort of derailed by injuries. Powerful lefty. He was on the mound for the walk-off but he was relegated to pitching in relief because he hadn't pitched in 2 or 3 weeks. Yep. He just had arm problems. So when he was a freshman, I thought he might be the next Rocker, Gray, go down the line, Leiter. He looked like that type of talent, but he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. He hasn't developed into that. So there's a little bit of bad luck, coupled with the fact that in this day and age, college teams are older. They've got money backing them. The transfer portal allows a team like Coastal Carolina to have, if you look at their roster, it's a hodgepodge of guys that have been there for 1 year or 2 years. They've transferred from junior college. They've come over from a Division III program. They've transferred down from a major Division I program. Mm-hmm. But like everybody's a free agent every year. So Tim Corbin's formula, out of his control, has changed a little bit. And that is the tough challenge that I think they're facing going forward. And there's no easy answer, right? But I think I know Tim Corbin well enough that what he is cherishing, the development of young men, I've got them from age. I know for a fact, he goes to these guys' weddings. He and his wife Maggie, right? Yeah. He loves the fact that he's got all of these families that he can say he had an imprint on their lives for 3 or 4 years, right? And it's just harder to build that. It's hard to sustain that now because so many people get pulled in different directions. And they're like, well, you don't like it at Vanderbilt? Oh, the South Carolina needs a first baseman. It's just becoming routine that happens, right? Oh, you're the backup first baseman? Oh, we've got an opening over at first. It's like that is the give and take of the opportunities for the athletes now, right? And that makes it really tough on the coach. The stresses, and this is not just for Vanderbilt baseball. This is for all college coaches, right? And we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Rick Neuheisel had a great interview with us. His son is a coach, right? He talked about the constant everyday thing. Are my players that I have staying? Am I going to wake up this morning and get a message that one of my players is hitting the portal or isn't happy? And what about all the other players that are in the portal? That do I want this guy? Do I like that guy? Where does he fit? You can't just kind of sit back and take a breath and say, boy, I really like my team. They're all coming back next year. I'm working on the recruits for next year. It's just there's so many layers on top of it now with all that stuff.
A lot of which are, to a certain extent, out of your control. You can try and give a player the best pitch that you can to come back for the next season. You can muster up as much NIL as you can and make it as attractive of an offer as possible. But sometimes 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, they're going to make rash decisions, and they might decide to leave. Now, I do not think that Vanderbilt should move on from Tim Corbin. I know that's been a sentiment that's been thrown out there on social media. I see it in the text line.
Are we serious? Are we even serious about that? I'm not putting any stock in any of that. There is absolutely zero sentiment from anybody that I know who I value their opinion thinks they should move on.
All I'm saying is I've seen the idea on Twitter and I see it in our text line.
But let's put that in perspective. An idea.
I can
put an idea on Twitter that says, let's drive backwards down I-40 and see how far we get. Like there's just no credibility to that.
I'm just saying that is the feeling that I have seen in the conversation that is happening. Whether you want to buy into that or believe in that or value that, it is the conversation that's happening. And I'm saying that I disagree with that because I think that would be silly and I think that would be rash. But it is clear to me that something has to change. Whether it's on the coaching staff, whether it's the process. And if Tim Corbin is embracing NIL and transfer portal and acknowledges the formula that I used to use is not working anymore, so I have to modify my formula, then absolutely, you give him the opportunity to do that. But I think that Vanderbilt's in a really tough position where I do believe that the athletic department is bought into NIL and they are trying to do what it takes to keep up with the Joneses. But Vanderbilt is at an inherent disadvantage in terms of the NIL space and transfers. We've talked about how difficult it is with the academic standards and the transfer credits and things like that.
I don't think it's as easy at Vanderbilt to take a transfer. I don't know what it's like at Duke or Northwestern or
Wake Forest. Another team that's no longer playing
anymore. I do know that at Vanderbilt they're working on this, right? Because they know the situation. If you're choosing to play in the SEC, you have to try to adapt. But the school is sitting there going, I can't just take any transfer that wants to come, right? It's a little easier to transfer out of Vanderbilt than it is to transfer into Vanderbilt, especially depending on how many years you've been in college. So I think that's another challenge that they're trying to meet. And this is all sports, right? This isn't just baseball.
And also the fact that in baseball specifically, keeping up with the Joneses has never been as difficult because the league has never been as competitive as it is right now. 10 years ago, nobody thought about Tennessee baseball. Tennessee baseball is the best team in the country. Kentucky baseball, even just a couple of years ago, I never even thought about Kentucky baseball. They're a national championship contender. It's not just the Floridas and the LSUs and the Vanderbilts anymore. It is the entire league. That the league places so much value on baseball and being incredibly competitive in baseball. And to be incredibly competitive in this league, you have to be a top 10 team in the country. It is not easy, and it is not an easy process. So just kind of where are you at? Because you said you haven't heard any sentiment like that from people that you trust, and I get it. I understand.
There is 100% backing of Tim Corbin. I think the sentiment for me is, and this is when I talk to a lot of former players and people that I know follow very, very closely, I think I feel like Tim Corbin, does he want to continue to try long term to flourish in this new world? And I haven't asked him that question. I worry though that he could at some point just say, you know what, this is not what I signed up for. This is crazy. This is not. if he found something else that gave him the joy in maybe a different field, I would wonder about that. Just because I know what he has said for years and years on the air, what he talks to campers about, at his baseball camp, which has had such an influence on so many kids' lives. He's a lot more than am I winning on the baseball field, right? He's not a GM of let me wheel and deal with the salary with the NIL and this guy's going to go to this JUCO. I'm bringing in another second baseman over here. That's not what is something he cherishes. He cherishes building the program, which is exceedingly tough in today's college world. So it's not at all. There's not one iota for me of can Tim Corbin win in this. He can, but it's just
he has.
Yeah, but I'm talking about going forward.
Oh, yeah.
Right? He's going to have to adapt. He is going to have to probably find ways to get transfers. He's going to have to make tougher decisions. I think there are some coaches that do not mind telling a player after 2 years, hey, you're not playing here. You're probably better off transferring. Yeah. He buys in and backs players. He supports players that are willing to sit for a couple years behind an older player and then wait 2 years to be a starter. There are guys, plenty of guys in the lineup to do that. But there are some coaches that are impatient and say, you know what? I got a guy over here that wants to transfer in. I can put him right in.
Yeah.
These are all very, very difficult things, I think, that have changed in a hurry, right, in the last 2 or 3 years especially. So I don't know. But would I have any thought of, maybe another person could do it better? Not 1 second. Not for 1 second. So that's why I say don't take for granted. So anybody that's throwing that idea it's time to move on or anything like that, that's absolutely nuts. Tim Corbin would be my guy for the next however long he wants to coach. I would never, ever doubt that. Even if they slipped another level, I believe in what he's doing.
Hey, if he slip another level, then we may
you're
have
a lot
to
more
have
loyal than I might
be. We may have to have some
17 straight years of making the tournament. My teams, I played there. Now 64 teams. We had some pretty good teams that might have been on the bubble if there were 64 and not 48. But Vanderbilt didn't make the NCAA tournament from 1980 until 2004, until he got there. They've made it 17 straight years. So he's got a lot of slack in the rope to me before he's anything close to being on the hot seat. I'm giving him plenty of time. And I like the way he does it. That means something to me. I don't like bringing in 50 guys and having tryouts in the fall, and it's becoming normal, right?
Well, the way you used to do
I like the way they're doing
the way
it.
you got to do it moving forward. He's done it the way he felt was the right way, and it has produced a lot of wins. But over the last 3 seasons, maybe you need to change that. Maybe you need to change the way you approach it. I don't know. Listen, he's a hell of a coach, and we all know that. But even great coaches have to find a way to adapt to what's going on. And if you don't find a way to adapt, because again, Vandy fans, they're going to get tired of just because he set a standard. Corbin set a standard. If this continues, where especially if they're second fiddle to UT continually, then you add these other teams. If he continues to be like not one of those top teams, the fan base is going to get a little restless. Now, I'm not saying they're going to ask for him to be fired, but just like anything else, once you're not winning, we all know they forget about the winning a long time ago. If you're not winning now, then you got to answer the bell. You got to answer some questions here.
Especially when your arch rival just down the
and that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
historically has not been a very competitive baseball program, is now the cream of the crop.
Yeah,
that stings a little bit worse. Obviously, it's going to stink whenever your team falls short of expectations. The expectations that Tim Corbin has set are very high, but that makes it even worse. I do want to get into your thoughts on this coming up next, but first, we got more tickets to give away. I'm feeling in a good mood. We're feeling in a good mood. It's a sunny Monday, so let's give away some tickets to the Music City Grand Prix. Willie, pick a number.
Let's say 17.
Okay, maybe 7. Be caller 7 right now. 615.
You said pick a number. You didn't say between 1 and 10.
I thought you knew what I was doing here.
We're gonna be here till 4 o'clock.
Well, I'm surprised Willie didn't say 45.
I do have to. Plaz one year he said like 49 or something. Our producer almost went nut. Caller number 49. It did not go over well with our producer.
Nick to be sweating back there.
Exactly.
Okay.
Let's do 7.
Yeah.
The caller 7.
Okay, let's go 7.
615-737-1025. Caller 7 will win a pair of 3-day tickets to the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix at Nashville Superspeedway, September 13th through 15th. You can also purchase your tickets right now for the Music City Grand Prix at Nashville Superspeedway. Again, that's September 13th through 15th at MusicCityGP.com. As the race and station 1025 The Game has a special offer for a limited time. Use the promo code GAME, G-A-M-E, for a 20% discount now through June 16th. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com. I have to get to this text that I know Willy is going to hate. Matthew in Nashville texts in and says, is Tim Corbin coaching for his job next season?
No.
No?
No.
I can't say no definitively. Do I think that Tim Corbin should be fired? Absolutely not. No, I do not, because I think that Tim Corbin is one of the best coaches in all of college baseball. You never know what can happen. But
you're saying somebody at Vanderbilt would fire him next year for something?
I'm saying I don't know what can happen.
No, there's zero chance. 0.0 chance
Vanderbilt, I don't think it happens. Based on it being Vanderbilt.
You're talking about next year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
is he coach? I'm not going to say never.
They've given
I'm never going to say never.
They've given every coach
not
a lot of slack. They've given every coach a lot of slack over there at that university. So if Corbin has another bad year, well, not the year we expect of a Vanderbilt baseball team, they're not going to fire him. They're not going to be thinking about firing him.
No.
I think Tim Corbin is a fantastic coach, but it is adapt or die.
Vanderbilt will.
Now that's a different question.
They will hold
Does he need to adapt? Yeah, and I think they're already. You don't have any choice. They are adapting, but that's very different. Is he coaching for his job next year? There is zero chance that he gets fired. I don't care if they dip. There's no way. There's zero chance
unless they don't win a game at all next year.
And that's why I'm never going to say never.
They could go 10-40 next year. He will not get fired.
I don't think they're going to fire. It's
not after.
It's Vandy. They're not firing them.
No.
They're not.
Zero.
That is going to do it for us today. We'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Stillman & Company's up next.
Be love and love of your people. Happy Monday and peace.